Today, I kicked out my cousin from my birthday party after she brought in her emotional support chicken into my house. Because after it ran around my house and made a huge mess, I told her that she needed to leave, resulting in a lot more blowback than I honestly could even imagine is justifiable. And it's really put me in a spot where I seriously just don't know what to do anymore. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk and click the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Okay, so this happened last weekend and I still don't know if I'm actually going crazy or if everyone around me has lost the plot. I had a small birthday get together at my place and it was just close friends and cousins and it wasn't anything really that dramatic. I cleaned and set everything up, I put snacks out, I played music, everything really was normal. Well, that is until my cousin walks in holding a chicken, like a real live chicken in a tiny harness, just casually tucked under her arm like it's a purse. Everyone then goes quiet because we genuinely thought she was joking, but she looks at us and goes, "Please don't stare at her. She gets anxious. She's my emotional support animal." Now, she didn't give me a warning or any kind of heads up, nothing at all. But regardless, I try to stay normal about it, but the chicken immediately starts wandering around my living room like it owns the place. Eventually, it hops onto my couch, and my dog sees it and just loses his mind. We're talking barking, chasing, freaking out, which makes the chicken freak out, which then makes my cousin freak out. And now the chicken is running around flapping its wings, my dog is dragging a throw blanket across the room, one of my friends drops an entire bowl of chips, someone else screams, all the while my cousin's yelling, "You're stressing her out, stop it." The chicken somehow ends up in my bedroom, knocks over my diffuser, and starts stomping around my rug like it's protesting. And it's here that I finally told my cousin as calmly as I could, "Listen, you can stay, but the chicken can't be inside. Either take it outside or back home." She then looks at me like I insulted her entire bloodline. Then she says to me, "Wow, so you're discriminating against my mental health needs now?" And I'm literally standing there watching feathers float around my room while she says this. Well, to put it plainly, she refuses to put the chicken outside, refuses to hold it, refuses to calm down, and even refuses to do anything except say that I'm being ableist. So I straight up told her if the chicken isn't leaving, then she has got to go with it. She then stormed out crying, yelling that I embarrassed her in front of everyone. And now my aunt is blowing up my phone, saying I ruined the trust my cousin had in the family and that it was just a bird. Meanwhile, my house looks like a farm exploded inside of it. So yeah, was I overreacting for kicking her out? Or is bringing a chicken to someone else's birthday just objectively insane? Because right now I am seriously at a loss. Okay, this is one of the weirdest stories I've ever read because holy crap. You mean to tell me she brought a chicken to your house without telling you first? And then tried to pretend like it's your fault when that chicken ran around and like made a mess of everything? Like, dude, this is not about the original poster being ableist or not. This is about the cousin's entitlement and their refusal to follow any kind of like social norm. Like, holy crap, you brought in an animal that's not normally an indoor animal. And the cousin's trying to act like this is weird that you don't want it in your house? Like, dude, what a psychopath. So no, you did not overreact by asking her to leave because what she did was completely insane and completely unacceptable.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
Am I the jerk for not wanting my fiance's little sister to spend the night with us? Because honestly, anytime she's here, I feel like I'm about to have an anxiety attack. And at this point, I feel really pissed off and I'm not sure what to do. Okay, so my fiance and I live in a studio apartment. We've only got one room besides the bathroom, along with our 2 cats. So things get cramped pretty easily. His sister had spent the night with us one time before out of necessity because his mom couldn't find a babysitter. But this time it was just because. And I wasn't even told about it until she was already here. I'm an anxious person and people being in my space sends me into an anxiety attack, and it's a thing where I literally start shaking and my head starts pounding and my heart literally races. So to put it lightly, it's awful. To add to this, his sister really sets my anxiety off. Even when told no, it doesn't matter. She'll do something either way. I'm literally writing this as I shake, and while she's using my iPad that she never even asked to use in the first place, and I even saw that she got into some other things. I've tried telling my boyfriend that this makes me incredibly uncomfortable, and he just calls me heartless and dramatic. Not to mention last weekend, I made it clear that I wanted to spend the next couple of weekends with him because we just haven't done anything together. And honestly, right now I feel completely disregarded. Personally, I don't know many people who would want their little kid sleeping in someone else's room, but please, if I really am just being cruel and heartless, tell me, because right now I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk. Like, you guys live in a studio apartment. Like, a studio apartment is literally just a wide open space. There's no other rooms. It's literally just a giant room, and that's literally your apartment. So to have another human being in there just for the fun of it sounds incredibly annoying and very intrusive. So no, you're not the jerk. I would be pissed off about this as well, because at least he could have asked and been like, hey, this is something I want to do, instead of springing it on you at the last possible second. Am I the jerk for telling my brother that I don't want to co-sign a loan with him? Because right now he is very hurt and very pissed off at me. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, I have a brother and I'll call him Ethan for the sake of the story. I'm a 24-year-old female and he is 27 years old. He recently asked me to co-sign a car loan for him, and at first I was hesitant, but I really did want to help out. He's had a rough couple of years and his credit isn't great. I then asked him a bunch of questions about the loan itself, like the interest rates and payment schedule, and what happens if he misses a payment. Well, the more I looked into it, the more nervous I got. If he missed even one payment, my credit could take a huge hit, and honestly, I'm not in a financial position to risk that. So I told him I couldn't co-sign. I tried to explain it gently, saying it's not about not trusting him personally, but that my own financial stability has to come first. He then immediately got defensive, saying that I was selfish and not being family. He even said, "I thought you'd help me out because I'm your brother." And honestly, right now I do feel kind of awful. I do want to help him, but I also feel like he's guilt-tripping me for making a responsible choice. My parents say that I'm right to protect my credit, but part of me keeps replaying his face when I said no. He's hurt, he's frustrated, and he looks like I just betrayed him. So I honestly don't know if I was wrong. I feel like that if I said yes, I'd be setting myself up for stress and potential financial disaster. But I also don't want him to feel abandoned. So am I the jerk? Because right now I feel awful. Okay, no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you have good intentions and you obviously want to help out a family member in need, but from what you're describing, this just doesn't sound like a good deal for you. It really seems like you're gonna have to stay on him to make payments, otherwise your credit is gonna be tanked. And that just doesn't seem fair to you, especially when you're just trying to help him out. So no, you're not the jerk for saying no, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would say the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that she needs to walk her daughter to school after she practically begged me to rearrange my work schedule just so I could take her daughter to school for her? Because after I said no, she freaked out and pretty much turned the entire family against me. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a university graduate, I'm 23 years old, and I live at home with my mother. And she owns the house with a mortgage that's been fully paid off. I pay her rent and do most of the housework, and me and my mother both work a lot. I work in healthcare and I work irregular shift patterns, and my mom is self-employed and occasionally has to travel for work. Now, my brother, his wife, who I will call Rose, as well as their daughter, moved back into my mom's house on Friday. They got a mortgage on a home, but it turned out to have a lot of maintenance issues. The biggest ones being with their toilet and shower not functioning. Also, their heating doesn't work. It's estimated to take at least a month to fix everything, so in the meantime, they're staying here. Rose came to me and asked if I could take their daughter to school, as her school is like a 5-minute drive from the hospital. Now, normally, their neighbor, who has a child about the same age, would take her to school, but that's no longer an option. My brother works full-time and his shifts clash with doing this, and him and Rose also share a car, as she only works one shift a week on Sundays. I then told Rose that I can't commit to taking my niece to school every single day. She needs to be dropped off at school for 8 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I'm doing overnight shifts that don't finish up until about 10 in the morning, or I'm doing shifts that start really early in the morning. Well, when I said this, Rose got a bit upset and asked why I can't just explain to my boss that I need to be available for school drop-off. She didn't wait for an answer and said that she knows it's not that simple, but she needs me to help her. In my job, if you start requesting restricted availability, they will give you way less shifts. Now, I literally couldn't understand why Rose couldn't walk her daughter to school. It's a 15-minute walk from our mom's house to get there, with no hills and plenty of safe crossings. Rose and their daughter don't have any health conditions that would make this not doable. So I asked Rose why she wouldn't walk her daughter to school, and she said that it's too far to walk with a young child. I then showed her the distance on Google Maps, because I assumed that she wasn't aware of how close it was, and she just reiterated that that was too far. I said to Rose that I think that's her best option, but I cannot take her daughter to school every day. Well, later that day, my mom told me that Rose came to her really upset that I refused to help. My mom said that she knows I normally work irregular shifts, but also it would be a really nice thing for me to do. And I honestly feel like I'm going crazy, because when I was a kid, I went to the same school and my mom walked me there and back from this house. So I said no, and my mom said that's fine, I understand. But now I've got my brother calling me selfish, and he said it's a small ask that even their neighbor could do. But regardless, am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, everyone in your family is taking crazy pills because no, this is not your problem. First and foremost, this is not your kid. Why on earth would you ever suddenly be responsible for that kid? Like, if it really is that easy that even the neighbor can do it, then go ask the neighbor. Have the neighbor walk them to school or take them over there. Why should you have to rearrange your entire life just to appeal to these people who sound too lazy to get up and do it themselves? Which, by the way, this is all that's going on right now. Rose is being lazy and she wants to ship this off to you instead of getting up on time and doing it herself. Like, how irrational can these people get? So no, you're not the jerk. This is really stupid. And anyone that agrees with Rose is completely out of their mind because you are literally not the one being selfish. If anyone's being selfish, it's Rose and your brother. My boyfriend of 8 months is demanding that we buy a house together, as he is literally telling all of his friends and family that we plan on doing so, despite the fact that I've not agreed to this. And right now I feel very frustrated and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I've only been with my boyfriend for about 8 months now, and I've known him for like less than a year. He keeps telling all his friends and family that we're looking at houses. Now, obviously, problem number one is that we've been together for a short amount of time, and he moves really fast. In fact, he told me that he loved me day 2 into dating. The second problem is that he has $1,000 total in his bank account. First of all, I am not buying him a house. I can afford a decent house on my own, and I will be moving out of my current house within the next 6 months due to some neighborhood drama. But I guess he sees this as some kind of opportunity to buy a home together. When talking about buying my next house, I am purposely using phrases such as, well, I can afford this amount. I have told him that his finances scare me, especially if he plans on affording a house or even contributing to any cost. But he told me it's normal to have only $1,000 at a time in his bank account, and that's how most people live. And just for clarity's sake, he has a decent job and works in trades. In previous years, he has filed taxes for like $90,000 in income, and obviously it fluctuates depending on the amount over time each year. But every time I ask him where his money is, his response is to say that he has bills. But this is another inconsistency, as his only bills are general utilities and a car payment that literally is almost done. He doesn't have a mortgage, student loans, or any dependents. He also has passive income from being a landlord of other homes that he's inherited. His dad is big time pushing us to move in together, and my boyfriend agrees that we should. But I'm not ready to move in with him for a variety of reasons, namely time, money, cleanliness, and habits, but he's also not picking up the hints that I'm dropping. I feel like he's making this decision for the both of us without even asking if I want to. I don't want to hurt his feelings, but also I don't know how to approach this, because anytime I bring it up, he has absolutely zero verbal response to my concerns. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Dude, your boyfriend is being super toxic right now. First of all, you've hit the nail on the head. It is way too soon to be moving in with this guy. You've only known each other for like a year, and you've only been dating for 8 months. And I'm sure your relationship is fine and all that stuff, but this is like way too fast. And to me, it seems like he's only doing this as some kind of like pressure tactic, just to like almost peer pressure you into buying a new house, with him like putting his name on the side as if he had anything to do with it. And if that's truly what's going on here, then holy crap, run while you can, because this guy is not a winner. So if I was in your shoes, I would be straight up with him. I would tell him exactly how it is and exactly how I feel, because this is really invasive in my opinion, and you do not deserve this. Am I the jerk for changing my childcare situation after my sister-in-law increased her price for babysitting to an amount that was something I literally could not afford? Because right now there's a lot of bad blood in my family, and at this point I don't know what to do. So my husband's sister used to watch our 2-year-old 2 days a week during the school year, and she floated this idea a few summers ago. But I was upfront that he was already in a super affordable program that cost about $350 a month, and the absolute max of our budget allowed for this was like $400 a month. Now my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law helped me out a lot, and I have a flexible schedule, so I only need like 2 days of paid childcare. I realize $400 is not a lot, but I was extremely clear about what we were able to pay. Well, before this school year started, my sister-in-law asked to increase the cost to $500 a month. I was set to student teach in a matter of weeks, and it was relatively last minute, so we just said yes. But then 2 weeks ago, she told us that she had to increase the amount to $600 a month just to be closer to a fair market value. Well, luckily, I was able to get my son back in the original program that we had him in, and yeah, I had to do a lot of begging to make that happen. I then told my sister-in-law that I would give her a glowing review, and I was super grateful for her, but that I simply could not afford her rates. I sent her money for the first 2 weeks of November, even though she didn't even watch him those weeks. She tried to walk it back and say that we could go back to like $500 and then back to $400. But then she said, oh, screw it, I'll do it for $300. And at this point, I'm regretting the whole thing, and I probably will for the rest of my life. Now there's bad blood, and I wouldn't send my son into the middle of that anyways. My other sister-in-law said that I was kind of a jerk because I unexpectedly left my sister-in-law without the income she depended on, and she can't pay for her car insurance now. So am I the jerk? Because right now I'm kind of at a loss. Okay, this is crazy because your sister-in-law was clearly just trying to squeeze you for money, and the second you went back to that other program, she realized, oh wait, I can't just push him around, which is so stupid, like seriously. She knew from the get-go that you were on a budget, and she knew that you couldn't afford something that was more expensive. So what she did, and like the fact that she tried to pull this, in my opinion, is super malicious and very targeted. I mean, my god, how tacky and ruthless can you be? Not only for charging you so much, but for changing the price at like the last possible second. She's only watching him for like 2 days a week, so it's not like she's even watching him the full week. Like she's out of her mind if she thinks she's worth $600 a month. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. This is such a crazy take in my opinion that honestly I can't believe anybody's on her side, because in my opinion anyone that agrees with her pretty much just wants you to get scammed, and that is absolutely not fair. My brother-in-law doesn't want to pull his share of work at our farm, as he literally works half the hours my husband does, even though he has a shared responsibility of the farm and pretty much everything that happens. So I decided to get some petty revenge by quite literally ruining any free time he thinks he might have. And despite it being super petty, I honestly feel really good about it, and I'm so glad that I did it. Here's what happened. So my husband and his little brother both grew up on the family farm, and they are in the process of transitioning ownership from my father-in-law over to the two of them. And my husband works his butt off, as one has to do if you're going to be a farmer. Typically, he works about 80 hours a week, and oftentimes more, and rarely it's ever less than that. Plus, he's the brains behind the entire operation. My brother-in-law, on the other hand, probably works like 50 hours a week, and doesn't like to be told what to do, but also doesn't ever want to take the initiative to do anything either. He wants to be the boss without actually being the boss. We just finished harvest, and it was such a pain to get him to do anything. So when it was late at night and my husband was still out working, and I would see my brother-in-law's pickup at home next door, it was so frustrating. And also, we live in the middle of nowhere, but our houses are right by each other, so there's no way I could possibly miss him. Now, his wife and I do a lot of the bookkeeping, and since she still has babies at home, we work out of her house, which means I know her Wi-Fi password. Since we live so close, sometimes my device will stay connected to their Wi-Fi when I get home if our Wi-Fi isn't working super well. Well, the other night, my husband was out fixing a problem at our dairy barn, and I looked out the window through my brother-in-law's living room window to see him watching a movie, and it was here that I just snapped. Now, both of our homes use Roku TVs, and I have used the app before when we couldn't find our remote. So I turned out our lights, I connected to their Wi-Fi, and then I opened my Roku app, which automatically connected me to their TV. So while he was watching a movie, I randomly pressed the PBS Kids channel on the app, so it would stream that on the TV instead of his movie. I then watched my brother-in-law look so confused, and then opened the right channel to get back to his movie. But guess what? After a few minutes, I did it again and again. Then I did it again the following night. Watching him stress out and take the batteries out of the remote brought me so much joy. So if he wants to sit at home when there are millions of things to do, and he wants to be the boss without doing any of the work, then I'm gonna have some fun making his movie watching experience a little bit more difficult. And sure, it was dumb and petty, but man was it enjoyable, especially when I reflect on how lazy this guy's been as of late. Oh man, this is a brilliant way of getting revenge. I think I would go crazy if this happened to me. Like, I can't imagine watching a movie and then suddenly it goes to some stupid kid show. And on top of that, it's not an isolated incident. This keeps happening over and over again. So in the grand scope, I think this is fantastic revenge. Your brother-in-law sounds incredibly entitled and very lazy. He's not doing any work. He's basically trying to act like some big shot, despite the fact that he never lifts a finger, especially when your husband's doing twice the work. So yeah, this guy definitely deserved it, and hopefully he gets off his butt sooner than later. My husband nitpicks and overreacts about everything that I do, and now I'm at a point where I am seriously considering leaving him. Here's what's happening. Okay, for starters, my husband seems to go through phases where he seems to be angry or annoyed at me and just nitpicks the smallest things. And we've been together for 12 years. Tonight, it was because I left dishes in the sink and some used food packages when serving dinner. I always clean up after dinner, and that was the plan this time around. And even though tonight I had a toddler attached to me, I still managed to make a really nice meal and simply didn't have time to clean up and put the dishes away in the dishwasher right before eating. I then got upset and I said that he was being unreasonable, but he then tried to say that I always do this and I shouldn't be leaving a mess. I feel that he should have been grateful for the food, but he was seriously more angry about having to clean up and even made a point of doing so before dinner than the fact that I cooked dinner in the first place. Some previous other examples include being extremely annoyed that I took long to breastfeed our newborn, complaining and being miserable on our overseas holiday as he just didn't know it would be different to travel with children, making me feel bad for working on a weekend just to make extra money for our family, as well as being annoyed over little things to the point of not talking to me for a few days. He is the breadwinner, however, I still work like 3 days a week. I would also say I manage most of the household. I wash all the clothes, I'm doing all the cleaning, I'm getting the groceries and doing the meal planning, I'm cooking all of our meals and organizing all the daycare, plus all the holiday celebrations and gifts for his family. There are many things I could nitpick as well, but I simply don't do it. Now, after our overseas holiday where he was just plain awful, I did talk to him and I said I was considering wanting to separate as I was not happy with how things were. Well, he said that he agreed, and he was a little depressed and that he would change things. However, tonight I feel things have gone back to his moodiness and unreasonable behavior. But here's the thing, I wasn't brought up to be treated like this, and I'm beginning to think that maybe I would be happier being alone. But it would be really hard as we do have children. So seriously, I need to know, would it be that unreasonable to want to leave someone over something like this? Because right now I feel like I'm so lost and I simply just don't know where to go. Okay, first of all, no, it would not be unreasonable because this is some crazy behavior. Like, this guy sounds like a giant jerk, and this doesn't even sound like a husband. It sounds like some crappy roommate you have in college, constantly picking at you over things that are just so mundane and stupid, which, by the way, is super toxic. Like, even when you go through some of the extra examples, every single one of those examples are so irrational from this guy, especially the breastfeeding one, as if you can speed that process up, which is like, dude, what are you talking about? That's not something you can just speed run through. He's always saying bad things to you and saying, oh, you're not doing enough, or you always make a mess and you never clean up, but there's literally no evidence to prove that. It seems like this guy sees like one small thing out of the way and he's like, oh wow, you did it again, look at that. And that is seriously just so unfair for you. So no, it would not be unreasonable for you to leave because this kind of behavior is super toxic and you do not deserve that in the slightest.
My entitled sister stole and gave away my puppies after we had a minor disagreement. And now, even a year after the incident took place, I still refuse to talk to her, as I am still furious for what she did. And right about now, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk or not for choosing to stay away from her and not hang out with her ever again. Here's what happened. Also, this story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. So I first want to start off by saying that all the names in this story are fake. This happened about a year ago, but I'm still upset about it, and my parents think that I should talk to my sister, who I will call Nikki, and their rationale is that a lot of time has passed. She has said she's sorry, and we do have a new dog. So for a bit of context, I had an argument with Nikki that led up to the point of her going to my parents' house and stealing my puppies the night following our argument, and then giving them away the next morning before I or my parents could stop her. Now, for a bit of clarification about my relationship with Nikki, she is the daughter of my dad's ex-wife and is not his biological daughter, but my parents refer to her as my sister since my dad helped to raise her. Our argument first started when we got back from a trip to another state for a funeral for a relative of Nikki's mother. And FYI, this was a trip I was forced to go on. I said I wanted to walk over to my parents' home to visit them and see my puppies that were both Rottweiler and Cane Corso mixes. And these puppies were gifted to me from my parents after I moved in with them. Well, Nikki was in a bad mood because she didn't have enough money to get some substances and got mad when I told her I was going to visit my parents. She told me, "Why don't you just leave then and go back in with them? Just run back to mommy." And she said this in a really rude and mean tone. Now, I didn't respond and I just went to my parents' place, and my mom immediately noticed that I was upset. I told my mom and dad about what Nikki had said to me, and I didn't know what to do. Nikki was always quick to be mean when someone did something that she didn't like, and she had expressed that she wanted me to move in with her and her mother for a long time, and had basically kept me in their house by gaslighting and guilt-tripping me into agreeing to stay. This happened every time I wanted to go back to my parents. They would both get mad and guilt-trip me into sticking around. I knew if I told her I wanted to leave, she would get mad, but my parents comforted me and told me to just tell her that I was leaving and then bring my stuff back. Then they left to go to the evening church services. So I did as they advised. When I told Nikki that I was going back to my parents, she did her normal routine of getting mad and telling her mother. They then ganged up on me and started to get mad at me and gaslighting me, but I just kept packing my things. When I gathered all my stuff and was walking out, Nikki really started to freak out. She started to yell at her mother, saying stuff like, "Make her stop, make her stay right now." Her mother tried to order me to stay, but I just ignored everything that they said. After I got all my stuff inside my parents' house, I fed and watered my puppies before I started unpacking my stuff. My parents wouldn't be back until later because they often like to go to one of their church friends' houses for a few hours after the church services ended, so I decided to go to sleep. Now, I am a heavy sleeper, and I don't wake very easily, so I didn't hear Nikki come around and steal my puppies. They both knew her and they liked her, so they didn't bark or anything like that when she took them. The next morning, I checked my phone and I saw a bunch of messages from Nikki that started off with her being mad and demanding that I come home, to then her telling me that I owed her money for taking me on a trip, and then to the pictures of my puppies and the final message saying, "You won't see your precious puppies ever again." After reading that last message and the picture of my puppies, I began to freak out and I ran outside to find both my puppies were gone. My parents calmed me down enough for me to explain, and they began to call and text Nikki. She texted back that she had already given them away. She wouldn't tell us who she gave them to, so I just cried. annoyed, and I just blocked her and her mother's number. I did not want anything to do with them. Well, I guess she realized that she messed up after I wouldn't talk to her for days afterwards because she came around with a dog that she adopted on my 20th birthday and tried to talk to me, but I didn't say anything to her, though I was happy to see the dog. She tried to make me forgive her for a long time, and I finally did, but I still don't hang out with her like I did before. Now, my parents want me to start talking more with her because it's been over a year and she said that she misses me, but I don't want to be around her. She still has moments where she gets mad at me over little things, so I don't want to hang out with her at all. Now, I will speak to her and talk to her when other people are around, but I refuse to do that while alone. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Nikki stole and then gave away your puppies, all because you refused to do exactly as she said. And that, in my opinion, is unforgivable, and that would 100% inform my decision of whether or not I want to be around Nikki. Because sure, you have to talk to her around other people, but you do not for a second have to hang out with her ever again. Like, that's unacceptable and so inappropriate, it's not even funny. And the fact that your parents are like, oh, come on, Nikki apologized. It was only a year ago. Like, are they crazy? Nikki sounds like an awful person. Who's to say she wouldn't do something awful again if you let her back into your life? So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think you are completely justified by cutting her out of your life. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that I will no longer participate in family vacations if his ex-wife is also going to be present? Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that all the names in this story are fake. While on study abroad, my husband Robert got his foreign girlfriend Elizabeth pregnant. Their relationship was rocky, and they've been broken up since Tim was about 1 year old. I met Robert when their son Tim was 3 years old, and Robert and I have been together now for about 13 years. When I met Robert, he was upfront that Tim always comes first, and unfortunately is a package deal with Elizabeth when Tim is old enough for solo international travel. This was unfortunate because at the time, Robert and Elizabeth absolutely hated each other. My in-laws have always paid for plane tickets for Elizabeth and Tim to visit. Elizabeth and Tim usually visit for 2 to 3 weeks every year, and Robert always requested my presence during these visits so that I could build a relationship with Tim and to have some moral support when dealing with Elizabeth. Now, Elizabeth has mostly been nice to me, although it is superficial. I mean, we are definitely not friends. She's fine with the in-laws because they are very nice people who just want a relationship with their grandson and would never jeopardize that access. Robert and Elizabeth's relationship gradually improved, and by the time Tim was 7, they were on friendly terms. Being required to spend 2 to 3 weeks every year staying in the same house as my husband's ex has always been a minimum comfort for me, and at times extremely difficult and very painful. But I tolerated it without any complaint, without fully expressing how hard it was, because I felt that my main job here is to support Robert. I've been holding out for the goalpost Robert identified early on, that when Tim is old enough to travel alone, presumably Elizabeth will no longer come with him. Well, that time has finally arrived. Tim is 16 years old, traveled alone to visit last summer, and it was awesome. However, Elizabeth said she wants to come visit again this year and continue doing so every other year, with no end date in sight. My parents-in-law will never stop paying for plane tickets and never suggest Elizabeth not come. In fact, 2 years ago, prior to Tim's solo trip for the first time, they assured Elizabeth that she is always welcome even after Tim is an adult, that she is a part of the family as well. Statements and events like that have amounted to death by 1,000 cuts, in which I've been experiencing serious depression, all surrounding around Elizabeth's visits. I feel like the goalpost I was holding out for has suddenly vanished away. So I told Robert that I will no longer be present for the full family vacations when Elizabeth comes. I will hang out for 1 or 2 weekends only, and he knows I'm fully on board with vacations that do not include her. Now, he is hurt. He says my lack of presence shows everyone, including Tim, that I don't care. But I say that a stepmother cannot form a relationship with a stepchild when the mother is always present, and these visits are causing me extreme emotional distress, so it's time that I take care of myself because no one else is considering my emotions here. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, I don't blame you for a second for thinking about yourself first. You have dealt with this for so long. You've dealt with her visits for such a long time, and you're now feeling the effects of depression and like a decline in your mental health. In my opinion, that's more than enough reason for you to put yourself first for the first time and just escape this lady altogether. Because you're right, you are just the stepmother. You can't control this dynamic, and it really seems like everybody else is fine with this except for you. But I would personally not allow this to inform your decision of what you think is best for you. Because you've got it right. It really doesn't seem like anybody's thinking about your emotional needs, and if no one else is going to do that, then it's time for you to step up and take care of yourself. I recently got promoted to a more senior, higher paid position than my husband, and now as a result, he's treating me incredibly poorly, and at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I both have steady corporate jobs. Recently, I was called into my manager's office and offered a promotion to a more senior role. It came with a nice pay raise, and I was really delighted to accept it. I came home that night buzzing with excitement about telling my husband. I was just really proud of myself, and I wanted to share that with him. We've also got 2 kids. One is 7 years old and one is 10 years old, so I was sure the extra money would be good news. When I told him about the promotion and pay raise, his reaction was less than excited. After a pause, he said congratulations in an extremely flat tone, all before going really quiet. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not so full of myself that I was expecting a song and dance, but if our roles were reversed, I know I would have been a lot happier for my husband than he'd been for me in that moment. His reaction was so underwhelming that I kind of lost my excitement for the news, and I didn't say anything else about it that evening. The next day, my husband was noticeably quiet and seemed oddly sullen and hostile when I spoke to him. It's just like I'd imagine a teenager would talk to a teacher that they didn't like. He wouldn't tell me the problem, but after a weekend of sulking coupled with oddly passive comments about work, I basically knew that it had to do with my promotion. I didn't want to believe that he would be that way, especially since he has a great job that pays really well. The first day at work in my new role was super exciting, and in a surprising twist, my husband said he'd cook a special dinner, which really made me feel like he had gotten over whatever jealousy he may have felt. However, when I got home, my husband wasn't there, and upon calling him with no response, I got the following text message. He said to me, "Your big job must have been tough, so I didn't want to get in your hair." He had gone out drinking and came back very drunk. Frankly, I was really angry by this point, and I asked him why he was suddenly treating me like garbage. He got really passive-aggressive about my big important job, and upon asking why he'd promised me a dinner and then just left to go drinking, he smirked at me and said that was my responsibility since I was apparently wearing the pants now. The only reason I didn't scream at him was because my kids were sleeping upstairs. That was 2 days ago, and yesterday he was pretty much too hungover to even function. So today I plan on confronting him. My question is, how can I best go about doing this? Something needs to give here, because I won't continue this environment around the kids. His actions have been so clearly messed up that I don't even know where to start. He's never acted close to this before, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. It's pretty obvious, and I think you know this at this point, that your husband is very clearly jealous about your new job. You must be making more money than him or something like that, because your husband is acting as if this is the end of his world. Like he's going out drinking and getting entirely wasted, all after finding out about your big job. And that is seriously such a shame, because like, why would you not celebrate that? Why would this guy not be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is great for the both of us? Because it seems like this guy is like acting completely the opposite of what would be appropriate. And here's the thing, I get it. For a lot of guys, unfortunately, your job is everything to you. And maybe this guy just doesn't like the fact that his wife makes more money than him or something like that. But even then, like, why does he care about that so much? That doesn't negatively impact his life. Like, why is he acting like this is the end of the world while also treating his wife like absolute garbage? Like, this guy is really acting like a loser, and this is not fair for you in the slightest. He's treating your partnership like a competition, and that is honestly so disappointing. So hopefully when you do confront him about this all goes well in some kind of way, because this man is acting like a giant baby, and the way he's treating you is incredibly unfair. Am I the jerk for suggesting another soccer mom remove her daughter from our competitive team and instead enlist her in the social league, since she very clearly doesn't know what she's doing, while also taking away from the team's competitive dynamics? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'll start off by saying that as parents, we should be able to gauge our children's abilities and what programs are the best best fit for them. We play on a competitive recreational indoor soccer league, with all of this occurring during the off-season. The Parks and Rec in our area offer two different forms of indoor soccer. The first one is the social indoor soccer, and this one is the least competitive, and it's more about just having a good time, as well as being laid back and learning at a slower pace. The second one is the competitive team, and it is self-explanatory. Our kids, by the way, are 9 and 10 years old, and they really want to win. These girls fight hard and truly give it their all. Now, one player on the team literally just runs around flailing her arms in the air. She does not know the rules of the game. She will drop to the ground on the field and start throwing a fit if the other team scores a goal. She'll even start screaming that they're about to lose. It is such a distraction to all the players on the team, and even the opposing team gets confused. They have her in the defender box most of the time, and when it's time to defend and match up, she shakes her hands in the other kid's face or just runs the opposite direction. It's just hard to watch this as a parent. Also, a factor in this is that we pay a few $100s in fees every season, and some of us help sponsor as well, so we are invested in being competitive. Now, I get it, this is not professional soccer, but we still take it pretty seriously. Well, I spoke with her mother recently who just laughed and giggled about the girl's behavior. She would just call it cute and how she's having a good time out there. Now, I did not pry into her medical history because that's none of my business, but the mom voluntarily shared with me that her daughter had ADHD and was thinking about taking medications. Personally, I think there is something else going on with the kid, but again, that part is none of my business. I then suggested to the mom that maybe the social league would be a better fit for her daughter, that what she was doing on the field and during practice was so distracting, and it honestly was very counterproductive. I said that it was detrimental to our team, and it was hurting our chances of even making the playoffs. Well, when I said that, she snapped at me hardcore and said that this is just little kid sports, and it shouldn't matter at all, and that I need to keep my thoughts to myself. She also doubled down and said that she won't go to the social league, while also saying, "How dare you even approach me with that opinion?" So honestly, am I the jerk here? Because seriously, other parents and even the coaches have shown frustration, but I'm unfortunately the only one who's even spoken up. What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think you have every right to be concerned about this behavior, because like you said, it is distracting from everything you're trying to do. Like, that girl absolutely belongs on the social league. She can still have a good time and obviously learn the rules of the game, or even just learn how to play in the first place, because what you've described is basically her not knowing what she's doing. And that's not fair, because this is literally the competitive team. These are people who want to take this game seriously, and they are there for serious reasons. So for this kid to be screaming, "Oh, we're gonna lose," and also her running away from opponents and making a giant hole in the field, like, that's not helping the team at all, and it's really gonna hurt their chances of making any kind of progress. And I'm right there with the original poster, because I think they get it. This isn't professional soccer, but they did sign up for the competitive league, so they would like to have that competitive experience to some degree. And if a team member is not taking this seriously and they literally don't know how to play, then in my opinion, I think it's a good thing the original poster made that very clear to them. Now, I totally get that maybe the original poster should have had the coach handle that, and they themselves should not have gotten involved, but it seems like the coach and everybody else involved is like not brave enough to say anything. So to that end, I don't blame you for saying anything, especially when you've put in all this money and time into this competitive league. Am I the jerk for freaking out on my mother-in-law after she tried to get involved in personal matters of my own that had absolutely nothing to do with her? Here's what happened. So my husband and I took some time out from his mom last year because she was interfering with my personal business that had no impact on her whatsoever. Here's basically what was going on. I was contacted by some biological family members of mine who are my late father's parents and two of his siblings. They had reached out to say they regretted letting me and my younger sister go into foster care when we were 6 and 2 years old after our parents passed away. My sister passed away in foster care, and then I was left totally alone with no family. So having these people reach out now that I'm 29, and after not seeing them for well over 2 decades, it honestly all really made me mad. The reason for them not taking me in is that I was my father's affair baby. He was married with kids when he and my mom started an affair, and his marriage to his ex-wife only came to an end when my mom was 6 months pregnant with me. The fallout meant that my father was hated, understandably so, but so was I, and so was my sister when she was born. I have very vague memories of his older children, and none of them were very pleasant. My father's parents and siblings all sided with his ex-wife and the children once my parents passed away and decided that foster care was the only place for us since we had nobody on our maternal side. As a side note, my mother was a foster kid herself. I saw my grandparents and aunts and uncles at my sister's funeral, but she was buried by the state since none of them claimed her body, and I was just a kid myself, so I couldn't do it. So I had no desire to welcome them into my life or to forgive them and form any kind of relationship. Now, with that context out of the way, this is where my mother-in-law gets involved. She started making comments that I should give them a chance or I will regret it. She said, "How am I ever supposed to know my siblings if I don't make any effort?" Well, my husband told her to stop, and I even told her that my supposed siblings weren't even a part of the group who reached out, and from the limited info that I heard, they have no interest in establishing anything with me, and it sounds like they feel like I should have passed away with my sister. My mother-in-law said it didn't mean I shouldn't try, and then she wanted to know their names so she could talk to them herself. Now, after her not letting up despite my husband telling her multiple times, we decided that we are definitely going to take a break from her. Then, a little over a week later, she showed up and told me that she found them on Facebook and was waiting for them to accept a message so that she could talk to them and fix things for me. I lost my temper and I told her to stay out of things that don't concern her. Well, she told me not to curse at her, which I definitely did, and that she was just trying to help. My husband was furious with his mom when he got home. They argued and then his brother got involved and basically said I should have just shut the door in her face and let my husband deal with her. So now I'm wondering if he's right and if I was wrong to engage and say what I did. What should I do? You are definitely not the jerk. There's no way you're possibly the jerk here. First of all, this is all privilege information. This is a highly sensitive situation that does not concern anybody but you and your husband. So the fact that your mother-in-law would try to get involved and be like, "Don't worry, I'm gonna fix it," especially with people who literally abandoned you when you needed them the most, is so disgusting to me, it's not even funny. She's treating this like some kind of drama that she can fix, when in reality, these supposed siblings don't care about you. Even the people that reached out to you don't care about you in the slightest. They just feel guilty 2 decades later after they gave up on you and your sister, because that's exactly what they did. None of them were willing to take care of you and your sister, and they just said, "Okay, off to foster care you go." Like you didn't have anything to do with that scenario. So the fact that they would do that to you and your sister is so disgusting to me. But even with all that in mind, and even with your mother-in-law most likely knowing all of these details, she still felt entitled to try and patch things up with this extended family, even though these people are the furthest thing from family you could ever find. So this behavior from your mother-in-law is entirely inappropriate, and if that happened to me, I would have definitely lost my temper as well, because this is literally none of her business. And the fact that she tried to interject and force this situation to get fixed in some kind of way, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. An entitled Karen puts her hands on my son and steals a medication that he was holding that he desperately needed to avoid going to the hospital, with this entitled Karen claiming that she needs this medication more than my son because she doesn't believe that he's actually sick. And I've honestly never been more angry and furious with anybody in my life. Here's what happened. So a couple of weeks ago, my 4-year-old son was sick. He had a bad stomach flu that he simply couldn't shake. Since he didn't get better after 5 days and he barely responded to questions, I ended up calling the doctor's office. They were worried, so they wanted to see him. So we went off to the doctor's office, and we have a lovely doctor who told me that my son needed oral rehydration salts and that when he was uncomfortable, he could have a suppository or other painkillers for children. Since I did not have anyone at the moment who could take care of my son, I brought him with me to the nearest pharmacy for those 2 things. I put my son in a cart with a pillow underneath him, just so he could be a little bit more comfortable. The oral rehydration salts were very easily found. I mean, not many people needed it, especially in the winter. Children's suppositories were a lot harder to find though, but thankfully, I found the last pack at the back of the shelves. My son wanted to hold the medicine, so I thought to myself, "Sure, little man, here you go, but don't do anything with it." Since I was eager to get home, I hurried to the checkout. As I was standing in line, I was looking at some other things for sick kids that they had behind the counter, thinking if I could use any of this. I looked back at my son to see how he was feeling, as he had just made a sound. But when I turned to look at him, I see a hand grabbing my son's hand with a pack of suppositories. I then look at the fool who had the nerve to do such a thing, and that's right when I ran into the entitled mother of this story. My son immediately starts crying and screaming. Before Before I could react, she wrenches the pack from my son. She starts screaming that she has a sick kid at home and that she needs it more than my son. I tell her that my son is sick as well and that we had it first. Then this poor excuse of a living being had the audacity to say that I was lying. I mean, my son had lost several pounds in less than a week because he was so sick and he looked really bad. He even felt lighter than my daughter, and she is 2 years younger than her big brother. I was sick with worry. My son needed that medication in his system, and he needed to shake this stupid stomach flu. Otherwise, a little stay in the hospital during Christmas became a not so fun but real option. Our doctor was very adamant that he needed to get this medicine and fluids to prevent this. My son was crying whilst climbing out of the cart. While I picked him up and held him, I raised my voice and told this piece of garbage that I didn't care if she thought I was lying. I remained calm, but I let her have it. I had lost every ounce of patience that I normally have. The increased worry of the past few days, the lack of sleep as he needed his mom so much, even at night, was wearing me down. I saw red and I can't remember everything. People who were in the pharmacy and also at the cash registers absolutely heard me. I asked this entitled Karen what kind of piece of trash would take something out of a kid's hand, and a sick child no less. I stated that my son was sick and this was not even a point of discussion. I said that it was visible. She then tried backing away, but I straight up followed her, and every time she opened her mouth, I talked over her. Eventually, the manager came to me and told her to return what she had taken. Now, this entitled Karen didn't give them to me right away, but when she did, she threw the suppositories on the floor and then left. I was shaking while I paid for what I had. The manager ended up sitting me down and gave me some water. They talked to me, calmed me down, and when I calmed down enough, I went home where I continued taking care of my son. And thankfully, my son recovered without needing to go to the hospital. Wow, I can't imagine someone actually taking some medicine out of a kid's hand inside of your basket. Like, seriously, what kind of entitled monster would have done that? Like, you got to that pack of medication first. It's not like you stole it or did anything sketchy to try and grab it. You literally had it first and there's no excuses. Not to mention that this entitled Karen put her hands on your son. Like, I don't think I would have the self-control to prevent myself from getting physical with this person, especially if I witnessed that firsthand, so you clearly have a lot more self-control than I do, because that would have been really bad if I was in that situation. That's just me personally. But you know what? Good for you for standing up for yourself and not allowing this Karen to push you around like that. Your son was sick and you were trying to avoid the hospital, and this entitled Karen had no right to physically touch your son or even steal that medication in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend ruined my plans to go on a double date with my friend and his girlfriend, spending all of her money and coming to me completely broke in preparation for our double date. And now, as a result, she's demanding that I pay for her entire night on top of mine. But I simply refused that offer, and now she's calling me a jerk for not accommodating her. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I had made plans this weekend to go on a double date with my friend and his girlfriend. We have had this weekend planned for a while, and I've paid for our travel costs and for the hotel room for the night. Last weekend, my girlfriend had plans to go out with colleagues for a meal and drinks. She said that she would not be out too late and would only be having a couple of drinks after the meal. Well, she ended up staying out all night, which isn't a problem at all, but then the next morning, she said she spent more than she expected to, and now she could no longer afford the double date. She said I would have to pay for everything, or we would have to cancel because she can't afford it. Now, I was so annoyed because she had known about the plans for weeks, so she really should have planned for it. I told her that she should have come back when she said that she would instead of staying out, and then we wouldn't have this problem in the first place. She just said that she didn't plan on it, but that no one else was leaving and people wanted her to stay, so she ended up sticking around. But I just said that she should have thought about the other plans that she had and not expect me to pay for her night because she decided to ignore the fact that we had made plans. She said that was unfair and that I was wrong for being angry with her. I told her how awful it's going to look canceling now just because she decided that her colleagues were way more important and because she refused to say no to them. She just repeated that I was being unfair and that we don't have to cancel if I pay for her share of the night. But I refused, and I told her that I can lend her money and she can pay me back, but that I'm not paying for her just because she went over budget at the work event. She refused the offer of me lending lending her money and said that I was being a jerk for starting an argument. So honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, honestly. I think your girlfriend was being very irresponsible, and now she's feeling the full weight of it. Like seriously, all she had to do was put money aside for this trip. Like that's a very small thing to expect, honestly, for a night out with you and your friend. This also doesn't sound like your average double date. Like it really seems like you planned big for this, and you even have a hotel set up for the night just to enjoy this. So yeah, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your girlfriend's being unreasonable, especially with her being like, no, I'm not gonna pay you back, but you still need to pay for my night in full. It's like, seriously, at least compromise a little bit. Because at the end of the day, she knew exactly what she was doing, and it is seriously immature for her to act like this is now your responsibility, even though she's the one that threw away all of her money. Am I the jerk for not wanting my stepniece in my wedding, even though my nephews are going to be a part of it? Because I'm honestly trying to avoid her bratty behavior, and I know for a fact she will ruin my ceremony if I let her in. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, my biological nephews are 8 and 10 years old. When they were 4, their parents went through a very messy divorce, and as a result, I took them in for 3 years. I'm not going to go into detail, but my brother became a drunk, and the mom didn't want anything to do with them, so that's why I took them in. I met my husband through the school they go to because his daughter is in the same class. During the 3rd year, my brother got married to his wife, who has a daughter with terrible manners. She is 9 years old, so she is old enough, but she is a kid who will throw tantrum at events when it's not about her. For example, she blew the candles on my nephew's birthday, and when he cried, he got reprimanded. But I took them out the next day so that he could blow out his own candles. Now, keep in mind, my brother still isn't making an effort with his own kids. Towards the end of the year, he demanded to have his kids back, and because of how the court arranged it, he was able to keep custody. I, however, still attended everything because the boys want me to. I never bonded with his wife or daughter because the sister-in-law is rude and she is very passive-aggressive. But I have made efforts to invite them to my house just so we can bond, but she ripped up my husband's daughter's favorite doll, and then my sister-in-law got mad at me for reprimanding her. So anyways, at my wedding, my daughter is going to be the only one in my wedding party as a flower girl, and my nephews are going to be the ring bearers. We have a no kids rule, so that means no stepniece, because I know she will throw a tantrum at my ceremony. The main issue is that she wants to be part of my wedding as a flower girl, but my answer is no, because I want my daughter to feel special, and to be completely honest, she is not important enough to me to want her to be in my wedding. Well, her mother is demanding that her daughter be a flower girl, or my nephews won't be taking part. She stated that I'm hurting a child's feeling by excluding her, but it's not that I want to exclude her, it's just that I know she is going to throw a temper tantrum the very moment that she knows she is not the center of attention, because no matter what, she does that. I told my brother that if this happens, I will cut off all financial support that I have given them, which he said was not fair. Keep in mind though, I would be paying for a babysitter at the hotel, and I have chosen a venue that's close to a theme park, so while the ceremony goes on, she will be there, and then my daughter and nephews will join them for the rest of the time, and then go back to the hotel to go to bed and everything else, while the reception still goes through. Because this is a destination wedding, I will be paying for my parents' and brother's room, and a babysitter, which I think is generous, and way more fun than being in a wedding, which can be stressful. My brother is telling me to sort it out with my sister-in-law, and my parents understand me, but told me to let it go. My daughter wants to be the only flower girl, but also wants my nephews, and they cried when they thought they couldn't be a part of the wedding. So honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, your stepniece has shown a history of being a spoiled brat, and it's always been detrimental towards you and your kids. And in my opinion, that is just completely unacceptable. The parents are clearly not doing their job and keeping that kid in check, and it's honestly not fair for you to have to deal with that at your wedding. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your sister-in-law and her daughter are learning the consequences of their actions. And while you can't really control if the nephews are able to be the ring bearers at the ceremony, you can still make a firm stance that that stepniece is not going to be there, no matter how much begging and screaming they try to do. An entitled father doesn't feel the need to clean up after his destructive kid's mess. And I'm honestly so sick of this guy, and I seriously hope I don't have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. So I have a nearly 4-year-old daughter, and our next door neighbors has a son the same age. Their birthdays are a week apart, and the kids are best friends and love playing together, though we try to limit it because they have a dynamic that gets them really rowdy and very riled up. For the sake of the story, we'll call my daughter Frida and our next door neighbor's son Fred. Frida Frida and Fred are not their real names. Fred is a handful, and I think his mom does her best. But Fred's dad, he is so whiny and entitled, it is infuriating. So the other day, all the neighbors with kids got together to do a little winter bonfire in the backyard. You know, roast marshmallows and make bread on a stick in the fire. And so I got sent out to get a hold of some good sticks that we could use. And I decided to take Frida and Fred with me. We live in townhouses where there is a long row of garden plots that you can rent. One of the spaces is unused and full of the branches and things people cut out of their gardens. So we head over there to grab some sticks. And the kids bring a couple of toy shovels that they're playing with. As I'm trying to cut branches, the kids go into the next garden plot. Now, I know the older lady who has it, and she is always welcoming to the kids playing on her plot and is always offering them strawberries or peas from the garden, so I figured that it was okay for them to play there for a couple of minutes. Well, I hear stones hitting the ground and manic laughter, so I look over and I see Fred is kicking over all the bricks that this lady had made a raised planter out of. Then, my squealing Frida is grabbing bricks and throwing them. I put a stop to that real fast, and I told them that we have to rebuild the planter and that it's not okay to ruin other people's things. Fred eventually got bored with that and found a place that he could dig a hole. I told him he needed to help, but I couldn't make him. Frida helped me fix the planter and went to play with Fred when we finished. I went back into the patch of branches, cut what I needed, and came back out after 3 minutes. Now, I had heard that they were digging in some dirt, and that was fine, but as I'm coming out, I hear the impish voice of someone saying, "Oh, we know we're being naughty," as well as them giggling again. Well, I found they had dug all the gravel out of another neighbor's garden and were flinging it all over the parking lot. Now, this time I was angry. Had I not just told them not to ruin other people's gardens? And now we had to clean up this mess as well. Like, this is not okay. I told Frida to run home and get the big broom, and I told Fred to start shoveling gravel back in place. Frida took off to fetch it, but Fred sat down and resolutely informed me that I'm not his dad and he doesn't have to listen to me. But I told him that when he's with me, he most certainly does. Just like Frida has to listen to me. And when I said this, Fred ended up crying. So I call his dad, and I say that I need some reinforcements as we have a situation over here. Frida comes back with a broom and I get her started on shoveling. I'm sweeping and I can see it's hard for her to understand why she has to help, all while Fred is just sitting there playing with a shovel. So I explain it's because Fred doesn't want to help clean up the mess that they had made, but that Fred's dad was coming to make him do the right thing too. Eventually, Fred's dad shows up and I explain what's happened and that we need to get this cleaned up and fix this planter that they destroyed. But instead, he goes to Fred and says, "Oh, buddy, are you tired? You're acting like this because you had a long day, huh? Do you want to go home and have some juice and watch some Paw Patrol?" And I say out loud, after you get this mess cleaned up, right? I told the kids that we need to fix this before we go back. He responded to me by saying, "Nah, it's just kids being kids. Let the garden owners fix it. They won't know who did it anyways. Besides, I'm freezing out here. Aren't you cold, Fred? Let's get going." Frida then says that she's cold as well and wants to go with Fred. But I told her that I was also cold, but we can't just leave someone's garden in ruins or leave gravel all over the place. So we swept and shoveled everything back in place for 20 minutes. Frida asked about why Fred didn't have to help and got to watch TV about 15 times. I could see the cogs in her little head turning, trying to figure out why she was being punished while Fred got rewarded, and I just didn't know what to say to her, besides saying that in our family, we take responsibility and we clean up our own messes. I had to bite my tongue and not add that Fred's dad is entitled and that the apple doesn't fall far from the entitlement tree. But hopefully, I don't ever have to deal with that kid or his entitled father in this way ever again. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Here you are trying to develop good habits with your kid, and then this Fred kid, as well as his stupid father, pretty much ruin everything you're trying to do. That is seriously not fair. It really sets a weird precedent, and just like you noted, it's only going to cause problems when it comes to I don't know, teaching responsibility, because what the dad of Fred did is super inappropriate. He basically said, yeah, it's okay to break other things as long as you don't get caught. And it's no, it's not. What if that was your garden that somebody destroyed? I'm pretty sure they would be upset if someone destroyed your hard work. That is such an awful example to set for your 4-year-old kid, and I think you were in the right to tell your daughter, well, in our house, we correct our mistakes. And I seriously don't think that the original poster was being overbearing or anything like that. He was seriously just trying to fix the things that these kids had broken. broken. And in my opinion, I think it's a horrible example to basically convince your kid that if you don't get caught, then it is okay to try and break other people's stuff. My entitled aunt always forces me or my family members to bring stuff from our home country over to France so that she can enjoy items that she doesn't want shipped to her house. And after dealing with this for so long, I'm honestly exhausted. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I think context is needed before saying what I'm about to say, so I really need to explain some things first. I am planning on visiting my aunt and uncle in France for 2 weeks in April. I am not currently working and I'm just doing job interviews to get back into the workforce. So I'm living in my parents' places and I'm using my savings. I'm also in the process of applying to medical school, and I am going to take the medical school entrance exam before April of 2024. I was planning on going on a trip afterwards with them as a reward to me, and I spent about $800 on tickets. So it's my aunt, my uncle, and my cousin there as well. And I'm basically going to be joining them. Now, whenever they visit, we are always the ones to book hotels, tickets, and pay for gas money, and they pay for food once in a while. She is taking care of the Airbnb cost and the gas and the tickets, and I am planning on doing the same by footing the bill for restaurants once in a while. Now, with that bit of context out of the way, this is where things kind of get weird. My aunt has the strangest thing that she always does. And in my opinion, my grandma is like this with very little boundaries, so I'm going to assume that my aunt is like this because of that. My aunt always burdens people when they travel. When my grandma comes from India, she tells her to carry multiple pounds of lentils to bring to France. When my family goes to India, we sometimes go through France when we return back home, and since we have a large weight allowances for our final destination to America, she would sometimes ask us to carry heavy bundles of rice and grains, and we sometimes have to leave things behind that we bought for us from India just to accommodate what she wants weight-wise. This always made me angry because we rarely come to India, and it's really expensive and we end up leaving our items for her. My aunt regularly goes to India, and she is a single woman who's only responsible for one ticket, by the way. And sometimes we will meet her during a trip. She will send stuff to our house for us to bring along, and this has been going on for years. So last summer, for example, we were going to India to visit my grandparents, and she was in India for a month-long trip and told us to buy 10 giant bottles of shampoo, which she paid us back for, and sent handbags and clothes to our house. She would buy this all from a US website and then have it shipped to our address. So as a result, we had to add an extra suitcase just to accommodate her things. We also have my brother with a disability, and my mom has a push wheelchair. So the two of us, meaning my dad and I, were left to handle 4 giant suitcases all by ourselves. Reducing the luggage weight is always a must for us because 2 of my family members have disabilities, and my dad also has back issues, meaning that all of our luggage is handled by 2 people. And never ever have we done anything like this. It always blows my mind. We are all the type of people to never want to burden others, and I've never made her bring anything for me. When she comes to the US from France, I have never bought things from a French website, sent it to her home, and then made her carry all of that for me when she travels to see us. It's just rude to burden people like that. It's honestly just what I think, and I've honestly just been raised to know this fact. And you also should never burden others as well. Now, similarly for this upcoming trip, she has also sent to my house 5 dresses and 2 handbags, as well as multiple board games for my cousin. She also asked me to buy 6 giant shampoo bottles of dandruff shampoo that she uses, and that she will pay me back when I get there. I also have to get an entirely different suitcase, all for this, by the way. I myself have to carry all my stuff and also her garbage. And I don't even have my dad this time to help me out. I wanted to buy a blowout brush which works in the Indian voltage, and the US has a different voltage, and my hair tools won't work in India. But since France and India have the same voltage, I bought this brush on the French Amazon and I sent it to her home. She picked it up from her front porch and it's sitting at her place. When I come there, I will pick it up and take it back to the United States. And that's the only favor I've ever asked of her, to literally just pick something up from her front door and keep it inside. I mean, she doesn't even have to carry it. And I conveniently sent it to her home so that I can pick it up when I come there. In the past, I did test her just to ask for a small favor. There's a hair dye in India that I really like, and she was going to India herself. I asked her to get me 10 packets of those so that I can pick it up when I come to France. Mind you, it is extremely light, and it's not like the American dye boxes. It's a small, flat packet with just dye and developer, and all 10 packets added together probably weighed about 1 pound. We're talking about the weight of maybe 1 to 2 apples. But guess what? She didn't even do that. She got back home to France and just said, "Oops, I forgot." She couldn't even get such a light and tiny thing, but I have to get her 6 giant shampoo bottles and carry that, the clothes, handbags, and board games that she sent over. Honestly, burdening people coming to visit me by making them carry multiple pounds of heavy items wouldn't even cross my mind. I hate that I've been put on the spot like this. I am not at all a confrontational person, and part of me feels like this is some sort of power play on her part, since she makes a lot more money and is footing the bill for the gas, hotels, and tickets. Maybe she thinks that I have to allow anything that she does now, or something like that. Maybe she's trying to see how she can benefit from this and wants to use me coming here for this. Honestly, I don't know how to talk to her in a polite way, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your aunt sounds really intrusive. Like, who in their right mind wouldn't just order stuff and then have it shipped to your house? Like, I can understand if it's something small that she wants you to bring over, but for you to be expected to have this giant suitcase that you have to bring with all of her stuff in there, like, that is really extreme, and that's so unfair. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would start communicating with her and saying explicitly, listen, I can't bring all this with me. It is too much and I can't handle it on my own. If anything, maybe even offer to like ship it to her directly, because the way she's having it set up right now is so unfair. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely not want to put up with this. My boyfriend has been secretly jealous of all the hobbies that I spend time on, as he feels that I'm not spending enough time with him. So in retaliation, he destroyed nearly all of my personal property related to my hobbies. And now I'm left with hundreds of dollars worth of personal property damage, as well as feeling devastated for the sentimental value that I just lost. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So this is honestly the weirdest thing I've ever experienced, and I have no idea what to do. So I'm a 21-year-old female, and I have lots of hobbies. I'm sort of what you might call a hobby collector, but my top ones right now are running and training for a marathon, as well as baking, reading, and also doing something called junk journaling. And with that last one, I'm not sure if anyone is familiar. But more specifically, I've been doing reading since I was just a young teenager. This started about 6 months ago when I saw that several of my old books were dog-eared, which I don't do to my books. I asked my boyfriend if he had read them, which I would be totally fine with, by the way, but he insisted that he had not touched them at all. And I thought to myself, okay, that's weird, but whatever. Then after that, I literally could never find my running shoes. I bought a rather expensive pair and keep them separate from my other shoes because I'm a nurse and my hospital shoes are really nasty. But the running shoes I could never find. They would always turn up days later though, somewhere I definitely had not put them. Again, this is weird, but nothing to really raise any alarms. But then my journal got completely destroyed. Somehow it was left outside in our garage, where it is known to leak when it rains. It didn't necessarily get water damage, but the moisture made all my pages peel up and practically ruined 28 pages of it. The pages take me over an hour each, and I'm quite proud of them. So 28 plus hours of artwork is just ruined. Now this might sound really stupid, but I genuinely started to believe the house was haunted. I did shed a few tears over my journal, and my boyfriend rolled his eyes at that, but helped me glue them all back down and salvage as much as possible. I had a fleeting thought that he put it out there, but it was honestly so weird. I was like, why would he do that? Then it was back to my books. I had a huge bookshelf of about 200 books because I read books daily, but I started to notice that one by one they were all disappearing, like straight up gone. I searched every corner of the house and I could not find them. I even texted all 3 of my sisters, my brother, and my boyfriend's sister, asking if they had borrowed any of them and just didn't tell me, but they all said that they had not. My boyfriend's sister borrows my books often, but she always asked me first and insisted that she didn't have any of them. And when this happened, I was thinking to myself, okay, what is going on? But then it started happening with my baking. I could never find my mixers or my baking sheets or anything whenever I wanted to bake. The final straw though was when I found my KitchenAid mixer broken. It would literally just not turn on. And if you don't know, those things are expensive. So I straight up asked him, did you do this? Like, why is all this stuff broken or lost recently? Well, he finally admitted to purposefully hiding or breaking my things because my hobbies annoyed him. And when he said that, I was honestly blown away. I'm not gonna lie, at that point I exploded. I told him he was a weirdo for touching my stuff and that it was honestly so strange to do this as an adult. He proceeded to defend himself, saying that I was spending more time on my made-up hobbies than on him, and this was the only way to make me focus on our relationship again. Which for context, by the way, isn't true at all. I thought that we had a great great relationship. We go on dates twice a week, we spend quality time together regularly, if you know what I mean, and we get along with each other's family and friends. Like, I'm so confused. We've been together for 2 whole years. I love him so much. And other than this odd behavior, he's so good to me. After that argument, I was genuinely so distraught that I left the house and I went to the house my sisters live in, as they live together. They also agreed that it was the oddest thing in the world. The icing on the cake, though, is that when I got home this morning, he threw out all of my stuff. He cut the soles out of my running shoes. He cut the laces. He threw out my Apple Watch and destroyed my baking items. He cut up the silicone molds. And the box that had all of my missing books in it, they were in the dumpster with all of my other journal supplies. The journal he helped me fix was torn to shreds. And at this point, I genuinely started to sob. I know it sounds dumb and overdramatic, but I genuinely worked so hard on my journal that it made me cry. Literally hundreds of dollars and some of my favorite books in the trash. Money spent on baking supplies, which I used to bake for my baby cousin's elementary school. All of it just completely ruined. I just don't understand what is wrong with him. He's never been like this before, ever. I'm genuinely so confused about what's gotten into him. Is it something else that he could be projecting or something like that? Because at this point, I'm genuinely so confused and I don't know what to do. Wow, this guy's a massive jerk. Like, this guy went crazy. He started throwing all your stuff out and destroying your property, all because you weren't spending enough time with him. Like, if that doesn't prove that he's overly controlling and he absolutely is a violent narcissist, then I don't know what will. Like, to the original poster, I'm being completely serious. This guy not only doesn't sound safe, but he also sounds crazy. Like, any rational human being wouldn't go about destroying your stuff, all because you assume that they're not spending enough time with you. Like, if he really felt that he was left out of this relationship, he very easily could have talked to you and said, hey, I want to spend more time together. Or at least find some kind of like compromise in like how you spend your time or something like that, even though it sounds like you weren't doing anything wrong in the first place. Like, this guy just sounds straight up crazy. I can't imagine wanting to not only stay with someone like that, but also wanting to live under the same roof as someone like that. Like, if I was in your shoes, I'd be dumping him so fast, I'd be moving out of that place, and I would also be half tempted to file like a police report because you said it yourself. This guy destroyed hundreds of hours worth of personal property for you, and a lot of this is sentimental that you absolutely can never get back. Like, this guy, who I hope is soon to be your ex-boyfriend, quite literally is a monster in my opinion, and you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I work as a server and I finally caught COVID. And now, after being quarantined for 5 days, I'm getting ready to go back to work, but I seriously don't feel ready. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I am currently at a complete loss. I have been a career server for almost 10 years, and I have worked mainly in fine dining for the past 5 to 6 years. I was one of the lucky few who had not caught COVID-19 throughout the pandemic and was able to go back to working in the restaurant after lockdowns were lifted. Well, this past Friday, I was feeling sick with what I thought to be a moderate cold or flu situation. I knew I wasn't going to be able to come in on a busy night, especially if I'm not feeling well, so I opted to go to an urgent care to get a note and show management that yes, I truly was under the weather. Unfortunately for me, I was told I did in fact have COVID, and because I'm an asthmatic and a high risk for hospitalization, I should immediately start medication while quarantined. Now, my quarantine was only 5 days, but I reached out to my management to extend it by 2 days since I still had not been feeling great. They have been kind yet very distant about everything, and they helped me find coverage. However, I have realized everything I do makes me totally winded. I am on the road to recovery now and without fevers, chills, and sneezing, but my shortness of breath happens when I walk around too much or even stand too long. I am now horrified to go back to work the day after tomorrow when my shift starts back up. I really feel at a loss because I am not qualified for other jobs, and I worry I can no longer perform the same extensive work I used to. Before COVID, I would lift up to 50 pounds for a tray, I would be fast walking around the large dining room, and I would be keeping up with the tables. I genuinely don't know what to do. I don't want to quit or even worse, get fired. Has anyone ever had something like this happen to them? I know long COVID is diagnosed about 2 months out, so I won't be able to apply for any type of assistance as of now. I mean, should I just grin and bear it through the breathlessness? I even have a hard time walking and talking with my significant other as of now, and I worry about waiting on tables in the same way. It makes me question if my serving days are behind me. I really need this money, and honestly, I simply don't know what to do. This is really awful. Like, seriously, I understand where you're coming from. You are incredibly worried you're about to lose your job or like not be able to work at your job, and this is literally the only thing that you're good at. But I know if I was in your shoes, I would go directly to my doctor and be like, hey, I need a note of some kind stating that I can't work for long periods of time and that you need to have like a lighter load at work or something like that. But hopefully you have managers who have a soul and they're like, oh, I totally understand, take your time. Or they at least give you a lighter load because you're literally just now getting over COVID. It's only been 5 days and you still feel like garbage because at this point you are definitely not running at 100%. And hopefully your managers see that when you show up for work. Am I the jerk for pretending that I didn't know I was adopted just to make my teacher feel incredibly embarrassed? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm in high school and this was in my English class. Our real teacher is on a paternity leave, so we have a long-term substitute. So yesterday, she was telling us she wants us to write personal memoirs about something very important in our lives. And she goes about listing various examples for different students. She then told me that I could write about being adopted and how I felt when my parents told me. Now, I must have made a face then because I'm not adopted. I have 2 dads, but they had me through surrogacy. So technically, there was a legal adoption from my non-biological dad, but one of my dads is my biological dad, and my biological mom is my other dad's sister who donated her egg and carried me. I think it would be a stretch to call me adopted. Also, this substitute has no basis to even know any of this because anything I've written in class is just about having 2 dads. Anyway, she's kind of old school and doesn't like when we talk too loud, which to her is talking at a normal indoor level on group assignments, or when we make any normal faces or anything. So she basically called me out on making a face and said to me, if you don't want to write about being adopted, you can choose another important topic in your life. Maybe about how you help your dad at home. Now for reference, one of my dads has cerebral palsy and is mostly blind from optic neuropathy. I did write briefly about that in the intro assignment with our other teacher, so he must have left them with her to get to know the class. Now I was so confused, so I said to her, I'm not adopted. She just put her hand over her heart and goes, oh honey. So now my brain, which was lagging, finally caught up and realized she's only thinking I'm adopted, all because I have 2 dads. So at this point, I'm like, whatever, I'll just play into it. So I look upset and I say to her, I didn't know I was adopted. Now at this point, she's kind of panicking a bit and telling everyone to just start writing something. A lot of my friends are laughing under their breath because they know I'm not adopted. So she's telling everyone to quiet down and that it's not funny and to just get to work. But I'm just like, what do you mean I'm adopted? She's trying to tell me not to worry about it and just ask my dads when I get home. And I'm like, how can I be adopted? So she just sends me to the school counselor and I told her this story basically, and she just gave off the vibe that it was awful to mess with a sub in that way, and I could have just explained that I'm not adopted because now I've made her worry unnecessarily and I've embarrassed her. Now here's the thing, I do not think parts of my life are up to her to decide what I want to share or not, and I feel like it's on her if she feels embarrassed for assumptions that she made. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I personally think that the substitute teacher there is completely in the wrong, and I would even go as far as to say that she needs to be reported. Here's the thing, I don't blame you for playing a prank on her, but for her to even share that information in the first place is like a massive breach of trust. She is sharing something that is absolutely none of her business, and it really comes off as intrusive and incredibly rude. Like, you don't just do that to someone without talking to him first. Like, if I knew something about somebody else and I decided to share that information with like the entire class or another group of people, all without their permission in the first place to share that publicly, I could imagine that they would be pretty upset that I did that. I know I would be upset if someone's sharing my personal business. So no, you are not the jerk. That substitute teacher absolutely is in the wrong, as they had no right to try and make the assumption that you're adopted. My boyfriend of 3 years confessed that he is still not sure if he wants to get married. And after dealing with this for so long, as well as waiting for him to pop the question, I have finally decided that enough is enough. And I have now moved out of the townhouse that we used to live in. And right about now, I'm wondering if I made the right decision, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I are both 37 and 36 years old, and we've been together for just under 3 years, including a 9-month period in the middle when he was deployed to the Middle East. During the time he was gone, I took care of his 90-pound dog and completely gutted and renovated his townhouse. When the renovations were done, 2021, I moved in, and a month later, he came home. We have been living together ever since. During the year that we have lived together, I have essentially been a wife to him. Before I moved in, he lived like a teenage boy. The house was messy and dirty, there was broken furniture, and he kept the poor dog in a crate for 8 hours a day without any walks, and the only cleaning that was happening was done by his mother on an occasional basis. I turned his house into a home. I made sure the dog was exercised and cared for properly. I did the grocery shopping, cooking, laundry. I made sure that every aspect of my boyfriend's life ran smoothly. Early in our relationship, we began to discuss marriage. In these conversations, we discussed how important having children was for each of us, as well as my anxiety about my biological clock. He led me to believe that he would propose before he left for his deployment and that marriage would follow upon his return. But needless to say, he did not propose before he left, which was disappointing but certainly not a deal breaker. I believed that he would propose soon after he returned home from deployment, but he did not. We had serious discussions and arguments about marriage and our timelines in March, June, August, and October. In each instance, he shared that he was not sure yet and attributed this uncertainty to his belief that we needed to improve our communication. Each time, I modified my behavior to improve our relationship, but I did not really see any changes on his part. In August of this past year, we talked about a 5-year plan, and I shared with him how I ideally saw things progressing. I shared my hope to start trying for a baby next summer, and he agreed and said that he was excited and on board. In October, I told him that if he was still unsure about marriage when my birthday rolled around in early January, then I was going to take that as a sign to move on. Over the past couple of months, he has repeatedly told me how much he loves me, how he appreciates me and wants to spend the rest of his life with me. He even hinted about the upcoming proposal. However, on the night before my birthday, he told me he was not going to propose to me because he was having doubts and wanted us to continue to improve our relationship. He expressed the same things about communication, acknowledging that it was him who needed to improve. We had more conversations over the past week, and yesterday I came home from work and I moved as much of my stuff out as I could possibly fit in my car. I am heartbroken because I truly love him and I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. I also really want to have a baby before it's too late for me, and I can't believe I have to start over at square one. I worry that I will never find someone to spend my life with, that I will never meet someone I love like him. I recognize that at his age and after 3 years, if he isn't sure now, then he will never be. And it's honestly just so hard, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Yeah, I can understand the dilemma here. This is one of those situations where yeah, you've really articulated how you feel, and you felt like both of you were on the same page. Like he even said, yeah, marriage and having kids are really important to me, or at least alluded to that in some kind of way. So for him to suddenly double back and be like, well, maybe not so much anymore, or come up with this weird excuse that the both of you need to work on your relationship, only to then clarify that he's the one that needs to change things in his life. It's all really messy, and honestly, it just screams to me that he doesn't want to get married, and he is just not ready to commit to make that step. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for taking this step and sticking to your boundary. I mean, you really did lay it out quite clearly that your boyfriend needs to make a decision, otherwise you're going to move on with your life, because this is clearly very important to you. And in my opinion, I think you deserve to be with someone who also feels the exact same way. Am I the jerk for ignoring another teacher and telling them that I'm busy in front of my class? Here's what happened. So I'm a 30-year-old male and I've been teaching at a school for 2 years now. I am in my 7th year of teaching and I'm good at it. Students like me and I do well in my class. The other teacher of my subject, Mr. D, that's not his real name, has been at the school for 20 years. He is very particular about how he wants things done, and the majority of students hate him because he is extremely rude and has some anger issues. Many students have told me that they think he is bipolar because he goes from being overly friendly to aggressive at the drop of a hat, but I always shut down these conversations. A student was talking about him and said he has a specific expectation of what he wants you to do, but doesn't tell you how to do it, and then gets angry when you haven't done it the way he wants. This pretty much sums him up perfectly, and it is relevant to what happened next. Ever since I met him, Mr. D has been extremely rude to me, ranging from passive-aggressive comments to outright rudeness, to also saying negative things about me to students. Now, I have always brushed this off, and my head of department has even told him twice that this is unacceptable. Well, several months ago, Mr. D flipped out over something minor. He ended up coming to my class while I was teaching screaming and demanded I talk outside. He attacked how I teach, how he thinks I'm not teaching the students properly by his standards, and how this isn't good enough. Now, this is incorrect, and I tried to get a word in, but he wouldn't let me. This went on for a couple of minutes as I stood there absolutely stunned. I turned around and looked in the room, and about half the class was listening to our conversation. I told him the conversation was over, and then I went back inside. I literally could not speak. I was so angry. I had to leave and go to the bathroom to collect myself, and about 10 minutes later, he sent me an email apologizing. I then emailed him back the next day, and he apologized several more times. Since then, I have ignored him, besides the most essential communication that I would need, which I try to keep to an email. Now, he has noticed this, as he keeps coming up to me and is trying to be nice and speak to me, but I don't give him anything beyond a one-word response and just walking away. The other day, we had an assembly, and some students sang in front of the entire school. Afterwards, he came up to me and said how nice it was, and I said, yeah, and then I just turned and walked away. The next period, he came to my class to speak to me again. So I said to him, it's pretty obvious that I'm busy right now. Send me an email, and if I have any time, I'll reply. I then turned my back to him and I continued speaking to a student. One of my students saw this and said that they saw me walk away from him during the assembly. They were laughing as they said it, but said that I was being rude to him, which they find very funny because they simply don't like him. Now, I spoke to another teacher and they said that I was being rude and I should have been nicer to Mr. D. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? First of all, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Mr. D actually came up to you while you were teaching and literally attacked you in front of all the students. Like, if you really want these students to hate you even more, then just do that in front of someone else's class. Like, that behavior is so unacceptable and it really is completely unprofessional. It also seems like he's only being nice to you because he knows what he did is so wrong. And by the way, you have a paper trail you can submit to HR or something like that. Like, you very easily could forward all those emails to the principal and be like, look, this guy is bothering me. He even admits to being a jerk earlier, and he still comes up to me trying to like make amends for something that I don't want to talk about. Because this guy is obnoxious. He really is trying to like manipulate you and basically try to like control how you feel about him. So with all that in mind, I don't think you're the jerk. I think Mr. D is absolutely out of line because he absolutely has no business talking to you in that manner. My entitled, jealous cousin tries to sleep with my husband when I'm not around just to satisfy her weird jealousy that she has towards me and my life. And I'm honestly so blown away by her actions, I simply couldn't believe what she did. Here's what happened. So my cousin, who we will call Mary, that's not her real name, grew up to be an extremely jealous person in her teens. We've all hoped she would grow out of it, but she has not. She refuses to even address it. When I proposed to my husband, who we will call Sean, a couple of years ago, Mary threw a fit. She wanted to be the first to get married between the two of us. She said that she deserved it, even though she didn't even have a boyfriend. Because Sean and I chose to have a small personal wedding, we were able to use money set aside for us to buy a home and to pay off half of the mortgage. And this resulted in another tantrum from Mary, despite the fact that there is money set aside for her too, including from our grandparents and Aunt Miranda, who chose not to have children. So I think you kind of get the picture here. If I have something that Mary doesn't, she wants it. If I accomplish something before her, she screams that it's not fair. It doesn't matter if she's younger than me by 6 years, and I would naturally reach some goals before her. There's just no logic in her tantrums. This then brings us to Miranda's annual New Year's party. There's always food, drinks, and games. It's a fun night where we can get wasted safely with family and friends if we want to, especially since there are no kids in the family at the moment. When I was returning from the bathroom, I saw Sean looking extremely uncomfortable and trying to fend off Mary, who was sitting much too close to him on the couch. I managed to overhear her telling him that women are much better than men and insisting that he try with her because he didn't know what he was missing, if you know what I mean. Also, for reference, I'm a 28-year-old male and Sean is my husband. Now, Sean is 100% gay, so this was just pathetic for her, but I was seeing red over the fact that she was attempting to ruin our marriage to satisfy her jealousy. I said to her, if women are so great, then date a woman instead of trying to get my husband to sleep with you. Now, the entire room heard this and I definitely did not control my volume, so right then and there, the party was essentially ruined. The family has spared us from most of the chaos that followed, but today we found out that the money that was set aside for her is no longer for her. The tuition to pay for the remaining classes for her bachelor's degree degree has been refunded to our grandparents since spring classes haven't started yet. All the money from her parents is going to her younger brother, and all the money from our grandparents and Miranda is going to be distributed between him and myself. She's getting nothing. She's also been given 3 months to find a new place to live because her parents don't want her living under their roof. She was given a massive leg up just like I was, and she completely ruined it all for herself. Now, I do almost feel sorry for her, but considering all the things that she has done, I still don't feel that bad. Wow, your cousin is super toxic. Like, there's no other way around this. Like, for starters, her temper tantrums are completely uncalled for. Like, she's getting upset over you, like, hitting milestones in your life, and that's, like, really weird in my opinion. Like, why is she so jealous of you? Like, it really seems like she's obsessed with everything that you're doing pretty much all the time, while completely ignoring her own life and her own things that she has going on. So it really makes me scratch my head as to why she's upset that you're getting married and that you're also getting a house and you're paying off half the mortgage. Like, why would that affect her so much that she would be like, wow, you don't deserve it. This isn't fair. Also, for reference, Mary in this story is 22 years old. You would think that somebody at that age would have it more together, even just in a small way. So for her to act like this, even in her 20s, is really disappointing and really cringy. But in my opinion, what she did at the party was so inappropriate. It is really disgusting that she tried to do that to your husband, and that she basically tried to sleep with someone who is practically family at this point. Like, that's really weird, and it's so highly inappropriate. Because just imagine if the roles were reversed in some kind of way, and you decided to hit on their spouse or their, like, significant other as some kind of way to, like, satisfy your jealousy for her. Like, that would be an immediate red flag, and that would be so bad. But you know what? Based on the reaction from the family, it seems like everybody's, like, on board, and they're like, yeah, this is not okay. And sure, it does suck that she lost all that money, but I am really willing to bet that this is not the first time she's done something, like, super weird. This is most likely, like, the last straw that definitely broke the camel's back, and now the family's like, okay, we're cutting her off from everything. This is just not worth it anymore. So seriously, good for you for standing up for yourself, because your cousin is being incredibly creepy and very weird. And honestly, the blowback she's receiving is kind of deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister is constantly walking over our parents, using them for just about everything, while also overstepping boundaries and treating everybody like garbage. And after witnessing this on the sideline for such a long time, I feel helpless to do anything about this. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I want to start off by saying that this story has no good guy. Actually, this story isn't really black and white either. However, one person in this story is arguably worse than the rest of us. I'm a 26-year-old female, and I have two sisters who are 25 and 24. The youngest one, let's call her Jane, has always been the most spoiled between the three of us. At the age of 21, I moved out of my parents' house to join the military, and my other sister, let's call her Claire, moved out at 23 when she was about a year into her nursing career. Despite having a college degree in business administration, Jane still refuses to get a full-time job or even have any responsibility. Her life revolves around clubbing, partying, and going to the gym. To her credit, she did have a part-time job at our local coffee shop as a barista, and this job was her way of funding her lifestyle. But other than that, she doesn't pay bills. My parents pay for everything, from her car to her cell phone bill, and even her tollway when she drives around. Basically, everything a normal, functioning adult would pay for themselves is footed by my parents because she doesn't even have a career yet. And look, I get it. I have a daughter myself, and I would do anything to make sure that she's taken care of, even as an adult. But there is the difference between financial support and straight up coddling. I've brought it up to my parents, specifically my mom, multiple times as to why she doesn't pay for her car, or at least her insurance, but she basically told me that she shouldn't suffer because of what our dad did. Now, for some backstory, my sister was driving a used Honda around 2017 to 2019. The car itself was fairly new when they bought it, so my parents had it financed, and they gave it to my sister so she can get herself to school. Well, suddenly and without warning, my dad took my sister's car, traded it for a brand new 2020 Honda, even though it wasn't paid off. Now, my parents, specifically my mom, as she is the breadwinner, is stuck paying for a brand new car and a car that she no longer owns. Because of my dad's utter stupidity, my mom tried to make it up to Jane by buying her a new car of the same year as her Honda. So not only was my mom paying for my dad's new Honda and my sister's old Honda, to which the balance insurance was put on top of the new Honda, but now she's got this new car as well. But with all that being said, my mom still feels that she shouldn't make Jane pay for the car because of my dad. Because everything was literally handed to Jane on a silver platter, this has made her extremely entitled. And this is to the point where even my parents are scared of her. For example, one time Jane bought Cane's chicken the night before and left her leftovers on the table. Well, my mom saw it and she ate it. And I had just gotten discharged from the military, so I was staying at my parents' house for a while until I saved up enough money to move out. So I saw my sister's reaction to my mom eating her leftovers. I had just gotten home from the store with my husband and my daughter, and as soon as we got home, Jane angrily asked me if I had eaten her leftovers. I told her I was just out with my family and we got lunch on the way back, so I could not have eaten it. Then she called both my parents who were at church, and she then found out that my mom had eaten her leftovers. After that revelation, she started to yell and swear at them over the phone. Even after she hung up the phone, she kept swearing and yelling and slammed doors and cabinets. I mean, my poor daughter saw all of this and was frankly quite scared of her auntie at that moment. The following week, I was at work when I got an angry phone call from Jane asking if I had been in her bedroom. I told her no because I was rushing to work. She then hung up and I thought that was the end of it. But after I got off work, my sister Claire called me and told me what happened. Jane called Claire complaining about how someone left her room open and one of the dogs had pooped in her room. This incident infuriated Jane to the extent that she stormed into her mom's room where our mom was working from home and engaged in a professional phone call with a client. Jane's intrusion disrupted the professional setting as she loudly berated our mom without any consideration for the ongoing business call. My dad apparently came into the room hearing all the yelling, and fed up with my sister's attitude, he angrily tells my sister that if she doesn't like it here, then she can move out of here, which really upset Jane because she then left the house. When I got home that night, I asked my mom why she continues to let Jane step all over her, even going as far as disrespecting her in her place of work. She says that she is her mother and she is supposed to help her children the best that she can. But I keep telling her that Jane needs adult responsibilities, otherwise she won't appreciate the things that she has. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, Jane sounds like a spoiled brat. There really is no other way around this. Like, she clearly is being enabled to act like this, and it really seems like no one's willing to take a stand except for you. And that's so annoying because there's not much you can do in this scenario. Like, it really does fall on your mom and dad to take a stand and say, okay, you've got to move out by the end of the month, or something like that, just to get the message across. Because right now, it's pretty obvious that Jane is taking advantage of your parents. And I think you're 100% right, because I also agree with you that it's time for her to step up and start paying her way as an adult. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law to stop being bitter about my wife's successful pregnancy after my sister-in-law had already had multiple miscarriages? Because right now, I'm kind of at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 26-year-old male and I'm married to my wife who's 24, and my older brother who's 30 years old is married to his wife who's about 28 years old. My brother has been married for longer than my wife and I, and him and my sister-in-law got pregnant quite a few times, but she lost her pregnancy every single time. They keep trying, but either in the first or second trimester, she miscarries. My wife and I got married last year, and she got pregnant a few months after the wedding, and we welcomed our baby a little over a month ago. We celebrated Christmas with her family and New Year's Eve with mine. We had Christmas dinner with a lot of extended family who had not met the baby yet, so they were all quite excited for it. My aunts and cousins and grandmothers were all over my wife and our baby, asking how she was, how the delivery has been, how she was managing the baby's feeding, and all kinds of stuff, which I think is all normal, right? Well, the problem is that my sister-in-law was very noticeably bitter, and my brother was too. I mean, it's not the first time they act like this ever since my wife and I found out about her pregnancy. At some point, my sister-in-law said that she was sick of all the baby talk, which really rubbed me the wrong way. I told her that she could go home and have chicken nuggets all by herself if she didn't like being surrounded by other happy people. Well, she and my brother said that it was kind of insensitive to be talking about that when everyone knows about their issues to have a child. But I told them that it's not my wife's fault that she was able to have a successful pregnancy and to stop being bitter about it. And when I said that, that started a big argument. It's been a couple of weeks now, and I'm still receiving some text messages from my family who are all deeply worried about my sister-in-law and brother after how I treated them badly. Now, I don't think I treated them badly. It's not my wife's fault that she can successfully carry a baby to term. It's not anyone's fault that a new new baby in the family is something to talk about. And now some people are starting to say that I was insensitive. Now, for a bit of extra context, this is not the first time my sister-in-law says stuff like this. She has done similar stuff in my wife's baby shower, as well as the gender reveal party, even her birthday and other family gatherings. She has made unnecessary comments and telling my wife to tone it down, all while opening up gifts for the baby at the baby shower. I mean, my wife was obviously excited, and my sister-in-law thought that she was overly excited. And we had to end the gender reveal party early because she just won't stop crying. We suggested my brother and her leave and that we wouldn't be upset over it, and I even suggested to drive them myself if they wanted to, but they still didn't want to do it. She just wanted to stay and cry in front of everybody else. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, it seems like this is like a repeated scenario with the sister-in-law, and I know if that was me, I would be really annoyed with the way she's behaving. Like, if this baby and the fact that your wife can have a baby is bothering her that much, then in my opinion, she needs to be the one to remove herself from the situation. Because I think to an extent, you are right. Instead of being happy that a baby is brought into the family, she's using this as a license to try and stomp out your wife's enthusiasm, as well as trying to stifle and calm down anybody else who's excited about the baby. And sure, I'm not ignorant to the fact that they've had miscarriages. That is an awful thing, and seriously, I feel very badly for them. But for her to turn around and use that against everybody over any small thing involving this new baby, that in my opinion is incredibly toxic. Like, if that bothers her that much, and if it really does trigger her and upset her in some kind of way, then I really think she needs to figure that out on her end instead of punishing everybody else around her. Now, when it comes to the comments you made at the party, I think you could have been a lot nicer, to be completely honest. And I think in that regard, yeah, you really should not have done that, because obviously this is a very sore subject for her. But I really think it's counterintuitive for everybody else to be forced to walk on eggshells, all because the rest of the family is excited about your baby. But honestly, that's just my opinion. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Do you think the original poster was in the right, or do you think that he crossed a line? Let us know down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. My obnoxiously needy friend is trying to invite herself on my holiday with me and my boyfriend, and I honestly do not want her to come along with me because I know for a fact she is going to ruin my vacation, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that all the names in this story are fake. So I was having lunch with two of my friends when Ash, who's 25 years old, asked me what my travel plans were for 2024. I told her I was really excited about planning my first overseas trip with my boyfriend, and as soon as I said that, my friend Allie perked up and said, "Oh, let me know when you're going so I can come too." Now, we were both taken aback by the abruptness of her statement, so I gently tried to tell her, "Oh yeah, that'd be nice. However, we would maybe like to do couple things," which she replied by saying, "Oh yuck, but that's fine. I just want to go shopping and get some sun." And right now, I'm trying to figure out how to gently tell her that I do not want her coming on this trip. Here are just a few things that I have issues with. Now, Allie is my friend, but she can be a lot. For starters, she has called me needing help with basic household chores before, making me reschedule my own plans because she, for example, cut her finger to the bone. And for the record, she did not cut her finger to the bone. I live 30 minutes away, and I had to cancel plans only for her to manage to get herself together about 20 minutes into my drive. She's also given herself food poisoning at least 5 times last year. She sprained her wrist, and I had to drop her off at the emergency room at the hospital. She also sprained her ankle as soon as she touched the ocean, so I couldn't go swimming because she'd get lonely on the land. And this particular trip, she was also not initially invited to. Also, on multiple occasions, she's inserted herself into conversations that I am in that literally does not involve her, nor do the other people know who she is. And the worst part about it is that she won't leave. I usually end up excusing myself because I can see the person I'm talking to is getting uncomfortable. She assumes everyone that knows me knows her, and she will even later tell me that she tried to say hi to some people that I knew, but they would just look at her as if they'd never even seen her before, and I just have to keep reminding her that they don't know her. But she insists that she has spoken to them many times, and this honestly gets really exhausting. She invited herself to a birthday party as my +1, and this is when she didn't even know the birthday girl, but claimed that she did. She made my boyfriend and I spend our first Christmas together at her house, all so she wouldn't feel lonely. And she also invited herself to our family's Christmas, where she literally only knew me, so I was left to entertain her to the point that I couldn't enjoy myself. Now, here's the thing. Traveling is expensive. I want to be selfish when when I travel, and the last time I traveled with someone who's not my childhood best friend was literally almost a decade ago, and I will honestly have a hard time compromising. This is also going to be my first trip together with my boyfriend. This is my forever partner, so I would like this to be a memorable trip where we each have each other's 100% focus. On top of that, I'm an introvert, and my social batteries are as bad as an iPhone 7, and then, as a result, I'll get cranky, and I don't want to subject my boyfriend to that. My boyfriend has never left the country before, so this is really exciting, but I am also 100% preparing to take on all the mental load while we're traveling. Now, in my awful, blunt brain, I just want to tell her something very straight up. I want to say something like, hey, I don't want you there because you're going to ruin the trip. I don't want to eat a romantic dinner for 3 or do a scooter ride for 3 people. You're way too accident prone for me to relax when you're there. Even if you were on the other side of the island, I do not want to get a call from a random hospital saying that you've done all sorts of things to yourself. If you want to go and we happen to be in the same area, you will have to be 1000% fine that I will ignore you. Now, I am by no means stopping her from going overseas. I just don't want the mental load of another person, take into account her wishes, worry if she drowned or dislocated her shoulder, or anything like that. But her rejection sensitivity is very real. She is still a good friend of mine, so I am trying to be gentle with her. I feel like if she goes on this trip with us, I will end up despising her. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. It sounds like your friend is absolutely obnoxious. Like she sounds really attached to you, and she keeps inviting herself into events in your life. And that is really weird and incredibly awkward. So I can completely understand where you're coming from, where you're like, no, I don't want her to come along this time. So I think that not only should you not tell her specifics about your trip, but you can also simply say, no, this trip is just for me and my boyfriend, and then literally leave it at that. If she pries for information, just shut it down immediately. Don't tell her specifics or any dates that you're going or any of the hotels or anything like that, because it literally will not serve you well, and knowing enough about her, she might just try to show up anyways and crash your trip. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be devastated, and I really would start to despise her, especially with all the things that she's done in previous trips. Like she invited herself to your Christmas party even though she doesn't know anybody there. Like that is really obnoxious behavior, and seriously, that needs to be like stomped out as soon as possible. And I also hate to say it, but it really seems like she's attached to you because nobody else wants to be her friend. Like she very clearly uses you as like a doorway to get into these other groups of people, just so she herself can also be included in the conversation. Like I'm not really sure what she's doing, but it really does seem like she's just not self-aware at all about how weird she's acting. The original poster also goes on to say that her friend is neurodivergent, but in my opinion, that is not a good enough excuse to act this way and basically disrupt everybody else's plans as well as the original poster's life. Like that 100% falls on the friend to figure out and to manage, and it should not be everybody else's responsibility to navigate around her weird idiosyncrasies. So hopefully this conversation goes well, because the way your friend's been treating you in the past is really awful. And although she may be like blissfully unaware of how she's treating you, I think that it might be time to finally put your foot down and say, no, you cannot come with me on this trip. My entitled Karen of a friend absolutely ruined my trip to Puerto Rico, causing problems for me and my friends left and right, while also being completely unwilling to pay back me for any of the stuff that I bought. And honestly, I'm so glad that I cut her off, and I seriously hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So for starters, this happened 5 years ago. My friend from college, we'll call her Sarah, got engaged and was getting married in Puerto Rico. She invited me and my 2 other college friends, let's call them Amy and Sherry. When they got engaged, Sherry went on a tangent about how he was a terrible guy, how he was not good enough for Sarah, and decided that she wasn't coming to the wedding and told Sarah as much. And trust me, it was a very bad fallout. Now, for some reference here, he is actually terrific. She was just jealous and some other things, but that's not really pertinent to the story. So Amy and I decided to travel without her and make a whole vacation out of the trip. We decided we wanted a relaxing vacation with an upscale hotel, daily visits to the beach, and we must have good food and pina coladas in our hands at all time. Sherry and Sarah had made up after a long talk, and Sherry wanted to join us. In fact, she wanted to derail our entire trip. Sherry didn't want the same vacation as Amy and I. She wanted a cheap Airbnb, adventurous excursions, and honestly, she was on a tight budget. I had just recovered from a terrible injury, and I was extremely limited with my mobility, so I couldn't hike or be on my feet for long periods of time. We tried compromising with hotels and activities, but she refused. So we decided that Amy and I would book the hotel that we wanted, and she got a disgusting Airbnb down the street. I put my card down for everything with the agreement that they would Venmo me later. And trust me when I say this was a massive mistake. I paid for the rental car, but Sherry apparently needed the car more than us so that she could do her activities in the first place, which really was fine. We just needed her to drop us off at the beach. Well, guess what happened? She left us stranded for hours. And when she did end up getting us, she wanted to smoke the herb in the car. And I'm like, no, you're driving and it's under my name. I am not going to get penalized for that. She then started getting passive aggressive with me and Amy. Fast forward, and we went to see some caves for one day, which is an activity that we compromise on that I was physically capable of doing. I was driving and she was giving me directions, and she kept missing to tell me when to exit. She was very high, and she snapped at me, calling me stupid, and that I was doing all of this on purpose. And when she did that, I just saw red. I told her to shut up and give me directions properly. She said that I wasn't allowed to talk to her like that, but I just said, well, now you know how it feels. And after that, it was really awkward for the rest of the trip. When we fly to our next location, the wedding destination, she becomes so much worse. I once again paid for the golf cart that we rented for the tiny island, which was highly recommended, by the way. The first night there, she's being a complete brat, so Amy and I escaped to get food and bring it back. I called up Sherry, and I said that I found a bodega across from the restaurant, and I asked what she wanted for the house stay. When I brought everything back, she said that I forgot items and started saying, where's the cheese? What am I going to eat my eggs with? Where's my Coke? What am I going to drink my rum with? At that point, I had it, and I just straight up asked her what I did to receive such a negative attitude. But of course, she passive-aggressively just played dumb. Then, after pushing her for answers, she started calling me names and belittling me, so I just walked out. We ended up not talking the rest of the trip, and I upgraded my flight so I didn't have to sit with her. And when it was finally time for her to pay me back, she of course was incredibly resistant. I started off by saying, you owe me $75 for the golf cart. But Sherry responded by saying, well, you owe me for gas, so really I only owe you $50. Now, because I didn't want to argue with this lady, I just said fine. But that's when Sherry decided to keep going. She said to me, but since I purposefully tried to not travel in the golf cart to avoid you being an absolute jerk, I should only have to pay you maybe $25. Now, mind you, she was in the golf cart every single day, so what she was saying is just completely untrue. So I just snapped at her. I said to her, just keep your money. And trust me, some very choice words followed that sentence right after that. Eventually, she blocked me, so I lost it and I emailed her more choice words. I told her we are never going to be friends again and that nobody wanted her at the wedding, especially the mother of the bride and the groom in the first place. Amy and Sarah have cut ties with her completely, and none of us have spoken with her ever since. Now, I may have lost a friend, but the silver lining here is that I met my now husband at the wedding. So I made a trade by losing an awful person and gained this amazing person that is my husband. Wow, that lady is super entitled. Who goes on vacation just to act like that? Like, she stepped off the plane and immediately had like a really bad attitude about everything. She wasn't willing to compromise on literally anything you guys wanted to do. And when it was time for her to pay you back, of course, this lady's like, I don't have to pay you. It's like, what are you talking about? You literally used all the services that I purchased. Of course you're gonna pay me back. So honestly, good for you for cutting this lady off, because she sounds like an awful friend to begin with. And if the trade-off is that you find your husband and get rid of this weird lady, then in my opinion, you definitely came out on top. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my dad and stepmom that my brother does indeed come first before anyone else in the family? Here's what happened. So I have an older brother who is my favorite person. We share a mom but have different dads. My dad was his stepdad, but my brother and dad were not close. And when our mom passed away several years ago, my brother chose to finish high school at our grandparents' house and not live with dad and me. My dad remarried a year after my mom passed away, and my stepmom has a daughter who is 3 years younger than me, and then I have 2 half-siblings with them. My brother is a very big part of my life. I see him all the time. I go to his house whenever I can. I make sure I see him every Christmas no matter what else is going on. He's the family I will always prioritize, and he has always been great to me. If I I could live with him easily, I would. My dad and stepmom don't like how much time I spend with my brother, but they also dislike that my brother buys stuff for me and doesn't ever get anything for the other kids here or even treats them like family. He has nothing to do with anyone else in the house. Things kind of bubbled up over Christmas when my stepsister was upset that I went to my brother's Christmas Eve and then her grandparents came over and I wasn't there and missed out on the family time. I was kind of glad to miss it, honestly. I'd rather be with my brother, and my dad is always such a pain when his in-laws are there because he wants me to call them grandma and grandpa. My dad and stepmom sat me down a couple days after Christmas and told me I need to stop putting my brother before everyone else because it comes across as him being first in my life instead of everyone else being equal. But I told them that he is first and he always will be, and I told them that nothing has changed for me. They said he shouldn't be my priority when it comes to siblings, at least, because I have 4 siblings altogether and not just one. I didn't argue with them after that, and they were angry. I know my stepmom told my dad afterwards to just let me live with him to spare the other kids, but he said he couldn't do that or they'd never see me ever again. She then asked if that would be such a bad thing because clearly I don't care about them. Their disagreement led to me being told a few days later that I was behaving badly and that I shouldn't have said what I did. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I'm really sorry that your mom passed away, but also that your dad got married literally 1 year after she passed away. Like, I don't know about you, but that is really quick. Like, here you are grieving the loss of your mother still even a year later, and your dad suddenly marries this other woman out of nowhere. And according to the original poster further in the comment section, she mentioned that they got married after 2 to 3 months of meeting, and that it was a super crazy time. But when it comes to your brother, I don't think there's anything wrong with prioritizing him in your life, because honestly, you have a very serious connection with him, and he's somebody that you want in your life. So there really is nothing wrong with you going to visit him and like spending time on Christmas Eve, because after all, it was a holiday and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Even if you did miss out on your step siblings' grandmother and grandpa coming over, like you wanted to spend time with your brother on Christmas Eve, like there's nothing wrong with that. And also, I kind of noticed that all the complaints are coming from your dad's wife. Like, it doesn't seem like your dad's the one who's like instigating these conversations, but instead it's your stepmother who's like basically trying to kick you out of the house. Like, that is so messed up, it's not even funny. And I know if I was in your situation, I would be devastated that somebody was having that conversation about me. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your stepmom and your dad are absolutely being jerks, and I don't think for a second there's anything wrong with you visiting your brother, especially since you have such a close connection. Am I the jerk for kicking my mother-in-law out of my house after she made some awful comments about my children? Here's what happened. For a little bit of an intro, my fiancé and I have been engaged for a year and together for 5. My fiancé is 27 years old and white, and I am 24 years old and I am black. And yes, before you ask, the races will be important later on. I have one child that is not his biologically, but that is still her daddy, and she calls him as such. He loves her like his own, and it's honestly been such a blessing and so endearing to watch. We also have a daughter together and a bundle of joy on the way. So over the Christmas stretch, while everyone was at home, me and my fiancé decided to have a get-together at our home. Altogether, it was his 2 siblings, my 3 siblings, and his nephew, with both of my parents and his mother, making that 9 guests plus our family of 4. Our families love each other and get along wonderfully except for his mother. And this story pretty much just involves his mother. The family gets together on the 26th of December and is having a pretty good time, but my brother pulled me to the side and told me that my mother-in-law had made a couple racist comments towards him and my parents, and also started questioning why our people would get so offended by the N-word. I told him I'd handle it later, but I did not want to spoil the party. About an hour later, things have picked back up and my mother-in-law is playing with my oldest, and I hear her say, "Oh, don't you wish you had hair that wasn't some heavy braids?" And before I could get there, she said, "You look like your mommy, but you would be prettier if you had skin like daddy." Now, my oldest looks like me with pretty dark skin, while my youngest looks exactly like her father, and honestly doesn't even look mixed. When I heard these comments, I saw red. I took my kids and nephews up the playroom, and I came back down and I told my mother-in-law to get out of my house and never come back. Well, when my fiancé heard the commotion and I told him what happened, he was livid that I kicked her out without much fight back from her. I apologized to both families, and they said it wasn't my fault and understood. would. We then continued to have a great time. Well, for the past week, my mother-in-law has been blasting me on every social media platform, saying that I'm a jerk and swearing about me and saying pretty much everything under the sun. My fiancé has been completely on my side, and we sent her a message together about her not being able to see the children anymore, and she's blasted and calling me a horrible mother while also threatening me. My fiancé's father and one brother are angry with me, but otherwise, people are mostly on my side, or some of them are starting to think that I went a little bit overboard with everything. Now, I feel bad about my kids not seeing her anymore, especially with a new baby on the way. So am I the jerk for kicking her out? What should I do? I do not think you are the jerk in the slightest. Your mother-in-law was completely out of line. She made some nasty, horrible comments about your girls that they will probably remember forever. Like, you just don't make those kind of remarks and think you can just get away with it. If I was in your shoes, I absolutely would have done the exact same thing, because those racist comments have no business being in your home, and she absolutely needed to be kicked out. My boyfriend is refusing to work as he has been fired from most of his jobs, and as a result, I'm being forced to pay for everything. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I've been dating my boyfriend for almost 5 years. We lived together and we shared bills before. He had jobs off and on, and I constantly paid at least half and sometimes all the bills. Well, we broke up temporarily, and I moved out and got my own place. And about April of last year, he moved back in with me, promising to continually work. He had a job when he moved in, but got fired 6 days later. He then got so mad about being fired that he refused to work and left it all up to me for a while. About September, he got hired somewhere else and it went great, and I was so happy that he was working, but it lasted a month or a month and a half before he got fired again. He was paying bills and paying me back for bills in the past. He didn't want to get fired from this job, and I know he actually liked it and really did deserve to keep this one. But when they fired him, he refused to work again, even to this day. And even though I have told him multiple times that I'm struggling to pay all the bills and buy everything we need alone, he still just argues with me about it. He tells me that he just got fired and then gets angry with me for asking for his help. We have 2 kids and a few animals. My bills are more than I get paid in a month, and I have to buy all of our necessities and what they want. I have a couple credit cards that are way too high, and I'm just getting myself so deep in debt. And worst of all is that he knows this. My rent just went up at the beginning of the year. My internet bill tripled, and I recently purchased a car in September, thinking that he will be consistently working again. And then when he stopped, it kind of ruined me because now I don't have that extra money. He always wants to buy the herb so he can sit around high and play some video games. And then when I say something about a job, he gets angry. He tells me that it's my house. Why would I rent a house that I can't afford by myself? But he creates a lot of the bills too and doesn't help at all. He will get too hot when it's 20 degrees outside, and instead of stepping outside, he turns the heat off and turns the air on as cold as possible. So I have to heat the house, cool it off, and then have to heat it up all over again. He does this all the time and other stuff similar to this that costs me way too much money, and I'm really getting tired of him mooching off of me. The kids even go to daycare while I work, and I have to pay for that as well. So he's just sitting at home doing nothing, leaving me to work and do all the bills. I know that it sucks getting fired from a place that you like and you want to work, but he needs to be helping me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, you are 100% correct. This guy is using you completely, and he is not doing anything to motivate himself to get a job. And here's the thing, the fact that he keeps getting fired is proof enough that this guy is volatile. He is 100% the reason that this all happened to him, and nobody else is to blame. So honestly, I hope you're able to get through to him, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would not want to live with someone like that who is blatantly taking advantage of my kindness. My brother, for several years in his marriage, has tried to force his 2 kids to call his new wife their actual mother, even though their real mother passed away when they were just children. And now, after so many years of trying to force this on these kids, his kids no longer talk to him, and he's left wondering and asking me why that's the case. So I decided to be honest with him and explain exactly where he messed up. But now he is very mad at me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my brother has 2 children from his marriage to his late wife, Denise. His son just turned 20 and his daughter is 18 years old. And Denise passed away when the children were 6 and 7 years old. 18 months later, my brother met Catherine, his second wife, and they married after 4 months of knowing each other. Catherine Catherine was unable to have biological children, and she always dreamed of being a mom and wanted to be a mom to my nephew and niece. And my brother wanted this for her as well. But the kids did not want to be Catherine's children. They did not want to call her mom or be adopted by her. They did not want her to be the sole focus on Mother's Day, and the list of resistance just goes on and on. My brother spent years trying to get the children to call Catherine mom, and he and Catherine applied for her to adopt the kids and were rejected by the judge after she spoke to the children about what they wanted. They tried again and were denied by a different judge before making it to court. Things were always tense with my brother and his children. It was also tense with the rest of the family because some of us spoke up and asked why he was pushing this on the children so much. He would say that Catherine deserved to be a mom and deserved the respect for being a loving and nurturing mother to the kids. Mother's Day from the first year that they were married until the last year was very toxic. My brother no longer allowed the kids to see their maternal relatives that day, and they also didn't see any of us or visit the grave. He said the day in their family was for Catherine. He would make her breakfast and give her cards and gifts from the kids, and then the kids would tell her that she didn't deserve to be celebrated for Mother's Day and that she was nobody's mother. My brother didn't like it, and Catherine would be upset at the reminder, and the kids would also be quick to inform Catherine that they never wrote in the cards because my brother always addressed them to mom and the kids never called her that. In the last few months, my brother has lost contact with all of his children. The last time they spoke to their dad, the kids told him that he put Catherine's once before them and they would never forgive him for that. They said that he has no right to make them be the children to fill the void for her when they already had a mom who they loved. My brother dismissed the idea entirely that he put Catherine before the kids like that, but when I saw him for New Year's at my parents' house, he was telling me about it, and I told him that his kids were right and that he did put Catherine's needs way before his kids. I said he made her want to be a mother the most important thing and tried to force the kids to comply and be her kids. But he told me that that is not what happened, and I should be sympathetic to him and to Catherine, who had her heart broken by the kids. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? Okay, so it really sounds like the original poster's brother is absolutely out of line, and it sounds like he's been out of line for the entirety of him being a father to these kids. Like, the kids made it very clear, this is not my real mom, and I don't want to be adopted by her or forced to call her mom in any kind of way. And with all things considered, I don't blame them for feeling that way. They were 6 and 7 years old when their real mom passed away, and then for the rest of their childhood, their dad made Mother's Day incredibly toxic and tried to fit their children into this mold of basically trying to make them be like, no, Catherine is your mom. Like, that is so messed up in my opinion, and it completely ignores the children. It really disrespects their needs and wants, and if anything, after a while, it's just gonna put them off. I can understand you trying this once or twice, but for you to do this all the way until they're adults, every single year on Mother's Day, that in my opinion is so uncalled for. Because I think you just made needless drama for literally no reason other than you trying to appeal to Catherine, who is obviously a stranger in these kids' lives. And even with that in mind, I can understand why the judge would turn you down. And they turned you down twice, by the way. Like, if that's not an obvious clue that this is not going to work out, then I just don't know what is. So to that end, I don't think the original poster is a jerk in the slightest. Your brother asked your opinion and you told him straight up that you've been focusing way more on Catherine's comfort than your kids' comfort at all. Like, he seriously put his wife way ahead of his kids. And as a result, he basically made it so his kids are not wanting to talk with him ever again. And there's literally nobody to blame in that scenario except for himself. An entitled, angry customer claims that I'm the reason he's going to lose his job, while also demanding my personal cell phone number so he can call me over the weekend or whenever he wants when it comes to the progress on his insurance claim. And I'm honestly so exhausted with this guy, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I work as a claim adjuster for auto accidents, and a customer filed a complaint after hours, with me following up with him first thing this morning. I have no info on the vehicle other than what he reported, and I inform him there is a possibility of it being a total loss. Well, when I said that, he immediately jumps down my throat and tells me he doesn't want his car to be a total loss, and he doesn't want me to have it moved to another location for an in-person inspection. I start to discuss an alternative with him when he starts cussing at me and berating me, constantly interrupting me and just telling me to pay the claim. And trust me, if it were that easy of a job, I'd be paid less, and my job would be a heck of a lot easier. I explained that per his insurance agreement, we have to inspect the vehicle before I can make a payment for his claim, and we need to see if it's going to be a total loss or or repairable. He continues to be a jerk, so I inform him that I will disconnect the call and try talking to him again when he has regained his composure. I hang up and I go into a meeting, and he proceeds to call our customer service line over and over again. He screamed at a total of 4 women and refused to end the call until I accepted his call. I explained I was in a meeting and explained that I wouldn't be out for at least 30 minutes or so. He continued to stay on the line with them for a few more minutes before hanging up and calling customer service again. Now, I finally have a chance to call him back, and I explained that we can try to work with his shop and having them submit photos so we can do a preliminary check to at least see if the car is a total loss or not. He then tells me he sent me photos from the night before, and I explained that there are no attachments to the emails he sent me, and that we need very specific photos to have the most accurate review. He proceeds to tell me that it's my job to call the shop and request them, which is what I told him at the start of the call anyways. He then does something that honestly really blows my mind. He demands to know my cell phone number. I explain that I don't have a work cell phone, but he states he wants my cell phone to be able to reach me over the weekend. I informed him that I will not be providing that information to him, but he didn't listen, with him demanding it a few more times before stating that he wanted to talk to my supervisor. I stated that she was already informed of the situation and would be reaching out to him when she was able to. I'm not allowed to give out her contact information, but he tells me that I need to have her call him immediately. I then remind him that she is my supervisor and I cannot dictate her schedule. He then proceeds to try and keep me on the phone until his demands are met, but I inform him that I'm going to disconnect the call if there's nothing further to discuss, and eventually he's the one that ends the call. I called the shop and they also gave me an attitude, stating that I was keeping a good man from his job and that I shouldn't be wasting his time like this. I asked if they could email the photos to me just so that I can get it done, and they say that they will do that. I have an uncommon last name, so I made sure to spell it out to them multiple times since it is part of my email address. 2 hours before I leave for the day, I still don't have any photos. So I text the customer and I let him know, and he told me that he would call them. 5 minutes before I'm supposed to leave, I call the shop again and I don't get an answer or an option to leave a message. I text the customer to let him know that photos aren't received yet and we won't be able to move forward on his claim until Monday morning. Well, he starts blaming me for working in a different time zone, stating that it isn't fair that I work 3 hours ahead of him. I explained that I don't work 3 hours ahead of him, I'm just 1 hour ahead. Plus, the shop had all day to send me the photos that I needed. He states that since he doesn't have a rental car, which is something that he didn't purchase the coverage for, he is supposedly going to get fired on Monday and it's all my fault. I offer to set him up with a discounted rental, and he tells me he doesn't have a rental company in his area, but it's still my fault for him losing his job. And it's kind of like, good gracious, I'm so sorry to hear that. You mean to tell me that your employer is so heartless as to fire you for missing a workday unexpectedly when it's your first occurrence or infraction with them? I mean, seriously, they might want to contact their state Department of Labor then. He then tells me that I should just pay the claim and that I'm holding up his claim for no reason just to make life difficult for him. And this honestly makes me wonder what he thinks happens to adjusters who don't follow due diligence on a claim and just end up paying it. Well, we don't get cookies, that's for sure. In fact, we face termination with our employer, as well as fines with the state the claim was made in, as well as possible jail time. Oh yeah, don't forget that our employer can sue us for the money we paid to the customer without authorization. And if the customer knowingly cashes the check when they know their claim wasn't supposed to have been paid out, they get reported to the federal government for insurance fraud and sued by the insurance company for repayment of the claim. So I guess I'll see what he says on Monday. My supervisor has been reading my notes and keeping up to date with the claim, and she's going to have a very fun conversation with him, especially when all the calls exhibiting his bad behavior were definitely recorded. Wow, that guy sounds like an absolute psychopath. Like seriously, dude, just send the photos in. This is not the adjuster's fault. They didn't do anything wrong. They're literally doing their job and they're trying to make sure everything's like in line. And the original poster's correct. If they do this wrong, they could go to jail. Like clearly this guy doesn't care about that, but like I'm sure the original poster does. I'm sure they want to stay far away from jail just like anybody else. So seriously, good for the original poster for like handling this as good as they can. And hopefully come Monday morning, this guy has a better attitude and you're able to get some pictures and then move forward with his claim. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen touring my college blocks blocks my way and corners me, trying to force me to answer questions about my school. And despite telling her that I'm not a tour guide for my school, she simply would not take no for an answer and just kept going. And I'm honestly just so blown away by some people's entitlement. Here's what happened. So I go to a college in Boston, and there are constant tour guides here, and lots of people around campus that are not students. People are usually polite and ask where something is, which I'm happy to help them. However, I am not your tour guide. And I would also like to preface this by saying the school I go to isn't a big preppy school. People here are constantly leaving and coming back for co-op and study abroad and stuff like that. It's much more independent, and it's just not the kind of school where it's appropriate to corner students. Anyways, the other day I had just left my apartment to go grocery shopping, so it's important to keep in mind that I'm carrying a bunch of reusable grocery bags, so it is pretty obvious I'm going somewhere. I'm walking and I see a woman and her daughter standing and talking, and as soon as I begin to walk past, this woman steps in front of me, cutting off my ability to walk. She asked if I'm a student, and I said yes, and she immediately starts throwing me questions. And at this point, I am visibly uncomfortable, and this poor woman's child looks humiliated. At one point I said, "I'm not a tour guide, I'm sure they can answer all these questions." And this woman replies that tour guides don't give honest answers, and she wants a real student's perspective. This goes on for like 15 minutes. She asks me a question, I give a short answer, and say that there's people she can ask in the student center and that I'm busy. This woman then said, "Excuse me, you can take a few minutes to help out a prospective student." But actually, some of us are busy or simply don't want to be bombarded with questions. I finally started to walk away, and this woman steps in front of me to block me so she can keep on talking. I finally just said that there are people that she can talk to. I didn't sign up to be a tour guide, and I have somewhere to be. Please let me go by. She gets angry and calls me rude and says I should be more welcoming of prospective students, and that I should be happy that people want to learn about the school. Like, yes, please do learn. It's just not my job to tell you about anything. I just push past the woman as she continues yelling and trying to block me, and I could still hear her ranting until I turned the corner. I mean, some parents are so entitled. So honestly, just because somebody's a student somewhere does not mean they're obligated to be your tour guide. Yeah, that entitled mom was completely out of line. Like, it's pretty obvious after the first 2 minutes that you're not available for questions, but instead of letting you go and going to somebody else or the student center, she literally blocks your way and says, "No, you're gonna help me." It's like she really thinks you're somehow loyal to the school, and you simply existing at this school means that you have to welcome this other student that you don't even know. Like, that's a really rude thing to do, especially trying to corner someone and prevent them from leaving. Like, you can't do that to somebody and expect them to comply. Like, that is really strange in my opinion, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would be incredibly frustrated as well. Am I the jerk for not inviting my sister-in-law's in-laws to my kid's birthday party? Here's what happened. So my kid was born on the 31st of December 7 years ago, and each year we celebrate by having a family lunch at our house with my husband's family, since mine is in a different country. My sister-in-law got married 3 months ago and had a celebration lunch 2 weeks after. There, we met our new in-laws, but we never connected or exchanged more than a hello, how are you, goodbye, stuff like that. So they are practically strangers. They didn't interact at all with my kid. Now comes my kid's birthday, and my sister-in-law says that her in-laws will be in town, so they would come to the birthday lunch as well. And honestly, I didn't feel like having strangers in the house for that special day, and my kid also did not want them around, so I told my sister-in-law that she and her husband are welcome to come, but her in-laws can find something else to do for 3 hours. So here's what my sister-in-law decided to do. She came and brought over her son, left him for the day to spend time and play with my kid. Then she said to her mom and her brother, not my husband, to join her husband, and her in-laws for a morning coffee. The morning coffee turned into lunch, which turned into no one showing up for my kid. Around 5:00 p.m., I tell my husband to call her and tell her to come and pick up her kid because I was done babysitting him. She ends up coming alone and sees we didn't cut the cake, so she says that we should sing and cut the cake, but my kid didn't want to. She wanted to leave it for later to do it just with her dad and me. The sister-in-law kept at it, and her son said he wants to try the cake, so reluctantly we sang happy birthday and we cut it. They had a slice and then they left, and I also gave them a piece of cake to take with them for the in-laws. My husband and I decided to do at least something special for the day, mostly because my girl was really sad, so we went bowling for the first time for my kid. While in the car, my brother-in-law sent me a message saying that after the outing he had, he was sleepy and went to bed, and now he is up and wants to come come over and give the gift to my kid, but I tell him that we're not home. While we are bowling, my mother-in-law calls my husband, and it's around 7:00 p.m. at this point, and she says that she wants to pass by to give my husband a sweet that she had prepared. At this point, I blow up, and I tell my husband that no one is welcomed anymore. We're gonna go home and rest so that we can be up for the New Year's fireworks. Now, as a long story short, because I didn't invite the in-laws of my sister-in-law to come to my kid's birthday party, no one ended up showing up. And the cherry on the cake is that I've been told that I'm a jerk for making my sister-in-law literally choose between my kid and her in-laws, or for not celebrating the birthday on another day. So honestly, who's the jerk here? Also, for the past 4 days, my sister-in-law keeps on asking to meet up, which I gently refuse because I'm not ready to see her yet. What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like the sister-in-law threw a wrench in your plans and had this lunch just to try and get back at you for not inviting her in-laws. So no, in my opinion, you're definitely not the jerk, and if anybody's the jerk here, it is definitely your sister-in-law. My entitled neighbor never shows any gratitude for the work that me and my neighbors do to try and clear out all the snow on the street that we live on. And after she claimed that there's no point in doing it in the first place, I decided to get some petty revenge. And as a result, none of the neighbors have even bothered to dig out her car from all the snow, with the end result of her car being surrounded in an igloo of ice. Here's what happened. So where I live, which is outside the United States, we get snow in the wintertime, and I have a bad back and shoulders, so I bought a snowblower to avoid all the manual shoveling. I live in a 4-family house and we park our cars on a public street. When the snowplow clears the street, it leaves a good snowdrift on the sides of the street towards all the parked cars, and we go out shoveling it away so that we can get our cars in and out. Well, most of us do, but not all, especially one of my neighbors that can't be bothered to do it in the slightest. She gets her car out from that spot and drives over the snowdrift, and when she comes back, she conveniently parks in a spot that's cleared by me and my machine, or my neighbors with a shovel. Last week, she tried to wiggle her car from the spot and over the snowdrift, and I stood watching her from inside for about 15 minutes before she got her car out. The snow made it hard for her, and it doesn't help that she can't drive. Last year, when I was outside cleaning the snow, she came out and started her car, but she couldn't get it out of the snow. So I told her to step out, and then I reversed her car out from that spot for her, and then I cleared the snow where she was parked. I mean, I do enjoy being helpful towards my neighbors. She watched me doing the job, but asked me later why I bothered clearing snow on the public street where we have absolutely no assigned parking spots. Well, I said that I like getting my car out, and if no one's taken the spot when I get back, I like to park it without the problems that the snow obviously creates. It's easier and way more convenient when it's cleared. During the winter last year, she started parking in cleared spots and didn't lift the shovel to clear any snow one single time. Now, I wasn't out there to do it every single day, and my other neighbors did it when I did not. But for her, she did not even help a single time. Well, this week we had a massive snowfall, and we've had about 3 feet of snow in 3 days. So clearing the street and walkway to the house has been essential, but according to my entitled neighbor, why should I even bother to do it? Well, like stated above, I like getting my car out, and I enjoy helping my other neighbors. But this year, I haven't done a single thing at all to help her out. She does nothing to our community, and there's a limit on how helpful you want to be when you get nothing in return. My other neighbors and I have cleared everything except around her car, and now it looks like a good old-fashioned igloo. She definitely has some digging ahead of her if she even wants to open the doors in the morning. Oh, and the best part about it is that we have a cold front coming, and the forecast says that it's gonna be -4 degrees Fahrenheit the upcoming days, and that will make all the hard-packed snow literally into ice. And honestly, with all things considered, that is definitely gonna be her problem and not mine. Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk in this scenario, and I probably would have done the exact same thing. Like, here's the thing, in a neighborhood and a community, you try to help each other out so everybody is built up and everybody benefits. But when there's one bad apple who's just like, wow, why do you even bother? There's no point in doing this. But in reality, it's like, are you kidding me right now? The point of doing that is to help out your neighbor and your community. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but to be so lackadaisical as if it's not important, especially when this lady is benefiting from everybody's goodwill, like seriously, that is so weird to me. So you know what? If she really thinks there's no point, then she can enjoy digging her car literally out of an igloo. Because I'm pretty sure come Monday morning, she is definitely going to wish she had somebody to try and help her out of the snow. My girlfriend's parents are acting as our landlords after I helped them build the apartment that we're currently living in. And right now they're treating me and my girlfriend smelling like absolute garbage, and at this point we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, we agreed with her parents that a flat would be built at the side of their house as they wanted a long-term investment for when they were old. The flat is connected to the main house, and we share the same electricity and the same internet. Her father is a builder and built the apartment with my help. He paid for the materials to build it. However, as I am a painter, I painted the whole place for free and also furnished it all with my partner. I even had to buy 40 meters of internet cable and a router just to get some internet. We moved in just before Halloween of last year, and they have made our lives a living nightmare. We own a small dog who is very well behaved, and when we both go to work, my girlfriend's mother, who offered to feed him in our absence, goes into our apartment to let out the dog to use the bathroom and to get some food. Well, she has OCD and she doesn't work. Her house is always unrealistically clean, and they own a bigger house, so it is easier to have it spotless as there is more space to put things. And we rarely clean our flat regularly, so it's a good standard for us to stay in as well as for her to go into it. However, that never seems to be the case. Her mother will actively look for problems, such as if the floor hasn't been hoovered in a day, or if there's some dust around the coffee table. We both work and we can't get up in the mornings and bleach the floors and do a deep clean as she wants us to do. Our dog didn't have an accident in the house in over 2 weeks, yet she came in and said that she could smell dog droppings all over the place, which obviously is not true. She genuinely looks for flaws in the house to use against us for a fight, and her husband will agree and defend her regardless, even if it's right or wrong. They constantly let us know that it is their place and that it's not ours, despite us paying for rent, gas, and electric, and so on. I started to receive messages on my WhatsApp from her mother complaining about the dog droppings, which we leave in a little pathway overnight as he needs to go to the toilet at 2 to 4 in the morning, but we pick it up every single morning. Now, I wouldn't mind, but the messages are very sly and it's hypocritical because they own dogs themselves and they leave dog droppings in the garden for days and out in front of the house. I mean, I even stepped in it one day. Yesterday, though, was the final straw for me. I came home from work and I went into their house for a shower as they still have not provided us with a shower despite their many promises, and her mother tried to ignore me and just make me uncomfortable. I asked her if everything was okay and she just started nagging at me, saying that I lack respect because I didn't have the house absolutely spotless at all times. And by the way, the house is rarely dirty. I had to bite my tongue despite really wanting to say something to her. They speak about respect, but talk to their daughter like garbage at times, and when they are struggling for money over Christmas, we paid our rent early so they could get by. We also buy them gifts and stuff in the shops when they need it as well, and we also lend out our cars if needed. Look, I'm a reasonable guy, and I can look at my own flaws and break my own ego if needed, but I really feel as though they are acting out of line and they really need an ego check. It is not fair and it isn't letting me live my life comfortably. I mean, I can't leave this house without it being immaculate as if it's some kind of like showroom floor. I'm honestly at my wit's end and I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, these parents are absolutely obnoxious. First and foremost, I think the way they're treating you is really unkind and it's just super obnoxious. Like the mom's coming into your apartment and she's like, wow, this place is not spotless. It's like, no kidding, lady, I'm at work. Are you serious? She really is trying to like cherry pick issues just to have like some kind of argument with you. And that, in my opinion, is so annoying. Like that is seriously so uncalled for and nobody deserves to get treated that way. It's also really weird to me that they would have you do all this work just to make sure this apartment is up and running, not to mention all the free labor as a painter, as well as you furnishing this place and getting what, 40 meters of internet cable just so you can have some kind of internet. And then with all that in mind, they're going to turn this around and be like, oh, by the way, this isn't your place, it's ours. And it's like they almost have selective memory considering all the stuff you literally just did for them. That's really obnoxious, and in my opinion, if I was in your shoes and I had them treating me like this, I would be looking for a new place to live almost immediately, because I seriously don't think you deserve to get treated like that in the slightest. An entitled Karen gets really angry and aggressive when I refuse to get out of her way when getting off of a plane. Things got so bad that she even eventually ended up pushing me just to get me out of the way, and I've honestly never been more astonished by somebody's behavior in my life. Here's what happened. I'm convinced that there is nothing worse than a mother at an airport. Coming back from Cuba, I noticed this family right away at the Vanderoo airport because they were loud and the mother had a perma scowl on her face, which is probably why she looked like she was in her late 60s rather than her mid-40s, which is probably a more accurate age. Getting on the plane, they were pushing everyone in line as they tried to move forward because, the plane with the assigned seating will definitely leave without them if they don't get on first. The mother in question was sitting in the row behind me but across the aisle. At one point, I could feel someone staring at me, so I looked back and she was blatantly staring at me with the most disgusted look on her face. Probably because of my tattoos, honestly. I mean, she seemed like the type, but I just thought to myself, whatever. Then we get off the plane and she tried to push past me instead of waiting her turn, but of course I didn't let her because it's plane etiquette. Then as we're going through the hall towards customs, she's running down the hall, an angry face firmly in place and telling her kids to hurry up. I mean, it's not like we're all going to the same place, Karen. Of course, I get through customs before her and I'm the first one at the baggage claim because I planned ahead and I travel frequently. So I'm standing right at the part of the baggage carousel where the bags start to come out and suddenly I'm pushed aside. And guess what? It's this entitled Karen. But regardless, I try to hold my tongue. The bag starts coming out and one gets stuck, so I go to put it back on the carousel to help out the owner. And that's when I hear the loudest, rudest voice in the world. This Karen screeches, "Excuse me." She says this behind me, and then she pushes me aside again to grab her kid's bag. Now, because the carousel isn't huge, she just had to stand as close to me as possible. And when she did that, that is when I snapped. I just looked at her and I said, "Wow, lady." Then she starts yapping at me like an annoying little dog, saying how she is helping her kids and she was being polite. I just retorted that she clearly hates her life, and she is obviously the type of person who screams at customer service employees. She keeps going and she's slowly giving me a headache. But you know what? It is simply not worth my time. So I said to her, "Honey, you need to shut your mouth right now." And trust me, when I said that, she did not like that one bit. She liked it even less when I started laughing at her. I could tell she is definitely a jerk and has never really been called out on her behavior ever in her life. My bag eventually came before the rest of her stupid bags, and I ended up leaving her there, yapping like the annoying creature that she is. The best part is that neither her husband nor her teenage children stood up for her. In fact, her husband looked exhausted by her behavior. So parents, please, if traveling causes you to be rude and annoying, just don't do it. Stay at home instead and leave the rest of us in peace. Yeah, that's honestly really funny to me because this lady hit all of the entitled marks to basically make her a really terrible person to be around. For starters, she was trying to get off the plane before people ahead of her. Like, I don't know about you, but that really is common courtesy to literally just wait your turn and wait for people ahead of you to go down the aisle. I don't even mind if someone stands up because some people they can't really sit for long periods of time, so they have to stand up to stretch their legs and not be cramped. I totally get that. But if you're physically pushing people out of the way just to get your bag or get off the airplane, then you, my friend, are a horrible person. But I really love how the original poster handled this. They basically called her out on her garbage and made her look like a complete idiot. And I think the original poster is right. They probably have never been called out before like that, which is why she was left floundering, not sure what to do. And honestly, people like that really should be called out a lot more, especially if they're going to get up in other people's faces and cause problems for people around them. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to beg for an invite to my stepsister's wedding? Here's what happened. So my stepsister's dad married my mom when we were 7 and 6. I never knew my parents together, and from what I was made aware of, they had made a very brief relationship and I was the result. I have a sister from a dad who is 3 years older than me, but no siblings on my mom's side. My parents shared custody of me during my childhood, but I always preferred my dad's house. I was always closer to my dad than my mom, and I always loved being around my sister. My stepsister used to adore me and think that we were sisters and best friends forever. She had no siblings, so to her, I was that sibling. We were about 14 and 15 when she found out I didn't feel the same way about her. She read my homework one night, and I had to write up a personal piece from a topic of choices. And the choices were basically different family members and relationship types, and I just went with siblings. She was really upset after learning I didn't consider her one of my siblings and never even did. She stopped being so into me after that, which really wasn't a big deal to me. She did grow up to be more resentful of me when we were in our early 20s because I moved into an apartment with my sister, which she learned about from my mom. The few times that I saw her after that, she was always very snarky when asking if I liked having a sister that much and how nice it must be to be loved back. Well, my stepsister is now getting married and she didn't even send me an invite. It upset my mom and her husband a lot, and they asked why, and she told me that I'm not her sister. She stated that she just doesn't care about me and that I would not even want to be there in the first place. Well, my mom chimed in and said that I should ask her to invite me and even beg if I have to. She told me that otherwise it will look so awful as if we're not even family. And when my mom requested this, I just refused. My mom said that I should be upset to miss out on her big day, and I clearly told her that I did not care. My mom said that I should, and I should be willing to do this for her if nothing else. So I need to know, am I the jerk for not begging my stepsister to invite me to her wedding? Honestly, this is kind of like cut and dry, because it seems like the two of you established this relationship a long time ago. For starters, you secretly never even liked her as a sibling in the first place, and you know what, at least you had the decency of keeping that to yourself and not expressing that to her. But also, it really seems like this deeply affected her, and she took this incredibly personally, which I can completely understand. So it kind of makes sense as to why she wouldn't invite you to the wedding. There does seem to be a rift between the two of you, and it does seem like she just doesn't want you there. So I don't think you're the jerk for not wanting to go to this wedding and not wanting to like beg your stepsister to allow you to go, because it really seems like the both of you just don't want each other there. And I think at the very least, this is something that you both can seriously agree on. Because just think about the opposite end of this, like seriously. If you went up to her and suddenly, after years of just not really liking each other, said to her, "Oh please, let me be a part of your wedding," or something like that, in my opinion, I think that would be way worse than just accepting it and being like, okay, I'm just not going to be at this wedding, I guess. But I do have to say that it really is sad that your stepsister held on to this weird petty grudge for such a long time. According to the original poster, they further explained that they never hated them and they never like bullied them or anything like that. They simply did not feel the same way that their stepsister felt about them, and that's honestly like where it began and ended. It doesn't seem like there's some like deep-seated hatred from the original poster, but instead it really seems like it's being harbored by the stepsister in this situation. But in my opinion, I think it's very important to respect her wishes, and if that means you're not going to show up to her wedding, then so be it. My stepmother triggered my food allergy seemingly on purpose, and now when I try to discuss it with her and try and go over what was in the food that she made, she is now refusing to talk to me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context to start things out, I'm a 24-year-old female and I still live with my stepmom while working and going to school. Yesterday, I went to help a friend move out of his house, and I left the house in a rush. I went to tell my stepmom that I was leaving and I was running late, and she seemed to be upset that I didn't say good morning before telling her I was leaving. I told her I was sorry and that I was in a bit of a hurry and I would be seeing her later. I got home at around 4 o'clock, and sometimes when I'm out all day, she'll ask if I've eaten anything, so she knows if she needs to cook an extra portion. Well, she was still in a bad mood when I got home, but I figured that she just had a bad day, so I said hello. Then I went to my room and I took a nap. When I came to get dinner a few hours later, she was already in her room, so I just served myself and I went back to my room. What she failed to mention though was that something in the stew I ate had something I was allergic to. After throwing up, I texted her to ask her what was in the stew, mostly so I could know if I need to take a Benadryl or if I just need to sleep it off. Now, my reaction wasn't too severe, so I didn't really need my EpiPen. Well, she just leaves me on red. I drink some warm tea to open up my throat and then I go back to bed. This morning, I go to greet her and I ask her again what was in the stew, but she just stays silent. I ask if something is wrong and she starts imitating my body posture in a mocking way, still not saying anything. I ask her what the problem is and she just rolls her eyes and turns away from me. So I get my stuff and I leave. Now, here's the thing. My stepmom is very cognizant of my allergies, and sometimes she'll make a whole separate dish for me when she's eating something that I can't. I try to show my appreciation for her since she's a stay-at-home mom, and it's really helpful when I'm working and going to school to not have to worry about food. I'm trying not to make any crazy assumptions, but I am very upset that this has happened, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so this is a seriously scary situation, because based on what you've described, it kinda seems like your stepmom did that on purpose. And if that's the case, I personally would not feel safe to live there any longer if I was in your shoes. Because her history basically basically points to her being more aware of your allergies, as well as her trying to take deliberate steps just so you don't get sick from what she's eating. So when you ask her, hey, what's going on? What did you put in the stew? And she's just sitting there doing nothing about it and not responding in any kind of way, that in my opinion is a massive red flag, and that is seriously unsafe. It really seems from the outside looking in that she straight up tried to poison you. And that, in my opinion, would be more than enough reason for me to start calling friends and start asking whose couch I can sleep on until I find a place to live. Because what she did is unacceptable. And in my opinion, it really seems like she did that on purpose. My grandfather's entitled children tried to hide the fact that he passed away in the hospital and also tried to secretly hold a funeral just so that my grandmother and the rest of my family could be left out of my grandfather's funeral. And I'm honestly blown away by someone's entitlement as well as how evil somebody truly can be. Here's what happened. Okay, so my grandfather passed away when I was just a baby. When I was older, my Nana married a new man, a widower who I called Grandpa Walt. He was the only maternal grandfather that I knew, so I considered him my family. I didn't know this during the decade that I knew him, but his children from his previous marriage did not feel the same about my Nana. They did not believe in remarriage and considered her the most evil person in history for tempting their father from his vows to their deceased mother. They refused to see him in the home that my Nana owned, so that when he got older and had difficulty leaving the house on his own, they mostly just stopped seeing him for years. He had never mentioned his kids, so I knew nothing about them. Eventually, he started getting bad enough that prolonged hospital stays were getting more frequent, and he needed to be in and out of full-time care. Whenever he was in the hospital, she would visit him until he could return home. They had been snowbirds, spending winters in Florida and summers in Michigan, but because of his health, they had not been able to go to their Florida home in many years. They decided that she would go down for a week or two to make sure the home was okay and start the process of selling it before its value dropped from lack of maintenance, while he was safely in full-time care with staff they had known and trusted for years. Then they could use the money from the sale for his care. I went to visit him the day after he left to make sure he was doing okay. His son and daughter were there, and it was the first time I had ever seen them. I had barely even been aware of their existence, but I figured out who they were from their context. I said hello and I tried to introduce myself, and they pretended as though I was invisible and that they hadn't heard anything I said. They were literally acting like children, so I just sat awkwardly in a chair. They proceeded to stand there for over an hour, talking right in front of me to Grandpa Walt about how evil my Nana was, that she would abandon him in some dirty hospital and run off spending all of his money partying in Florida, and how they hoped he would remember that when it came to his will. It should be noted that my Nana, while by no means wealthy, had a lot more money than he did, and all of their property was hers from decades before she even met him. She was also an elderly woman with a hip replacement who had to use a walker, and this is the kind with yellow tennis balls on the legs, so she was in no condition to be partying in Miami or whatever they thought she was doing. Well, he never once responded. He just stared straight ahead with glazed over eyes. I wasn't sure if he even heard anything they said. He was not looking very well, but I knew he always had his ups and downs, so I didn't imagine anything was unusual. But I was flabbergasted. Looking back, I wish I had spoken up, but I was a teenager at the time in a hospital room full of sick and dying people, and I didn't know how to fight back without causing a huge scene. Eventually, I just took a brief pause in their rant to stand up and tell Grandpa Walt that I had to go, and that we all loved him and his wife would be home soon after she took care of the house issues. The entitled son and daughter spoke to me for the first time, telling me that I didn't need to come back because they would be there for him and I was not his family. I then rushed to my parents' house and I told them what happened, and they filled me in on their issues. And it seemed like even if they seemed awful, I knew it wasn't my place to try and keep them from their father. So I stayed away and I gave them time to catch up and hope that when I wasn't there, they could just catch up and figure out their relationship. Well, a few days later, my Nana got a very strange call from the hospital. A nurse that she knew very well from Grandpa Walt's hospital called her up and asked her how she was. Well, my Nana was fine. The nurse then awkwardly asked her, well, do you know? My Nana asked, no what? And then the woman broke down. Grandpa Walt had passed away nearly 24 hours ago. His son and daughter had forbidden the hospital from contacting my Nana and said that they would let everyone know about the funeral arrangements. I have no idea what weird loophole caused higher ups of the hospital to follow along with this, but his nurse sensed something was up up and took a risk calling to make sure that my Nana knew. So it was equally as devastating to find out that she did not. I mean, none of us did. They were attempting to hide his passing and hurried up to hold a funeral before any of us found out. The nurse let us know where and when the funeral was taking place, and my Nana called all of us on the way to the airport to let us know. We started the phone tree to our whole family, and soon after she was back and we were all on our way to the funeral. The look of rage and disgust we got when we walked into my own grandfather's funeral, especially what my Nana got for walking into her own husband's funeral, was terrifying. They glared angrily, and you could see that they wanted to scream and throw us out, but decided not to cause a scene. Instead, his daughter walked up and grabbed a fruit basket off the table. She announced that she was putting it in her car, and if any of her guests wanted fruit, they could ask her and she would go to get it in the car, because she didn't want just anyone eating her fruit. The son and daughter gave speeches about how their father was finally in heaven, back with his one true love, their mother, and finally free from those who tried to tear their love apart. The staff of the funeral home eventually clued into the weird dynamic and found a way to put my Nana's car in the front of the procession when neither of Grandpa Walt's kids were looking, just to give her a brief moment of respect. She was ticked off, but there was nothing that she could do. These people thought their own opinions on the definition of "till death do us part" entitled them to hide my Nana's husband's passing from her, hold their own funeral, and surely they spent days pressuring their father to cut her out of his will. And I wish I could have seen their faces when they found out that none of the property they were salivating over was even owned by him. It was a terrible, painful day for her to have to fight her way into her own husband's funeral. I was very sad, but I could not help but laugh at the fruit basket thing. It just came out automatically. It was the saddest, most petty, most evil, pathetic power grab I've ever seen in my life. Wow, these people seriously are some of the worst people on planet Earth. Like, I can't imagine someone being so evil that they would try to deny their father's wife, even though it's not his original wife, the opportunity to go to his funeral and grieve his passing. Like, seriously, you have to be so unbelievably twisted to pull that off, all under the guise of you being like justified for it. Which, by the way, their justification for the way they treated this Nana is completely uncalled for. People get remarried when their spouse passes away all the time. Like, this literally happens all the time and there's no conflict. I personally find no conflict with that, and anyone who does and then openly is combative with that person for the rest of their father's existence, in my opinion, is one of the worst types of people on planet Earth. Because this behavior didn't need to happen. They could have just let this guy live his life in peace and not try to attack their father's new wife in some kind of weird way. So what they did is so unacceptable, and I seriously hope for the sake of you and the rest of your family, you all never have to deal with that side of your family ever again. My boyfriend gave me a marriage ultimatum, stating that I only have the weekend to figure out if I want to marry him. And right now, I am stuck feeling unsure of everything, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So, to start things out, on Friday, my boyfriend asked me to deeply consider marriage over the weekend, and that I have until Monday to give him my answer. Now, here's the thing. We've been dating for over a year. He needs to marry for immigration and religious reasons. He's been living here for almost 10 years and is supposed to have an upcoming court case this year regarding his immigration status. Also, according to his religion, dating is not allowed. He told me he needs to make this next step in his life and that he has to do better in practicing his faith. Now, he is broke and he has a poor credit score. In his religion, the man is responsible for his wife, so I'm just wondering how I would be taken care of if this is his current situation. I don't feel comfortable getting married if we're going to be struggling financially right from the get-go. I would like to at least have a plan in place, but he thinks that is something that we can worry about later on. Yesterday, I went to talk to a priest, and he said me and my boyfriend can set up a meeting to discuss marriage. My boyfriend would like to have a religious ceremony from his faith, so I feel it's only fair to have one from mine as well. I called my boyfriend to tell him about making an appointment, and he refused. He said Monday is the deadline, and I thought he meant as in give him an answer and start planning, but no, he means Monday as in go to the courthouse and get married that day. He also told me this past year that we've been dating that he's gotten many opportunities from women that are interested in marrying him. He said he declined or ignored all of them because he wants to be with me. Now, I don't know if this is true or if he's trying to make me jealous, but I ended up talking to my mom about it, and she said she feels he is brainwashing me and that I should not be pressured pressured into this. She suggested not to make any big decisions right now. This all just doesn't feel right. Is this manipulation on his part? I mean, how do I move forward? What should I do? Let me tell you something. If I had a giant red flag that I could start waving around like crazy, I would do that literally right now. Because what your boyfriend is doing is insane in my opinion. He's demanding that you get married on Monday to him right then and there at the courthouse. And it does seem like he's putting the pressure on you and trying to guilt trip you into doing this. I mean, I'm right there with the original poster. I kind of thought, just like the original poster, that she had until Monday to decide to get married and then they would start planning out their marriage. But no, this guy's like, we're gonna get married on Monday and we're gonna go to the courthouse, while also implying that there's other women he could go to if she doesn't want to do it. But that just seems like a lie, because he's like, oh yeah, there's all kinds of other women that will marry me. Like, what are you talking about? Is he dating other people behind your back? If that's the case, then he's probably cheating on you or something like that. Like, that just seems like a really outlandish statement that's not completely true. And it's also really concerning about how much pressure he's putting on you to get married right now. Like, there's no time to think about this or figure out the situation. He's like really trying to be like, no, come Monday morning, we're going to the courthouse and getting married. That, in my opinion, is super sketchy. And I know if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would get married right away, all because somebody is demanding it, seemingly just so they can make some kind of step in their immigration status. Because at the end of the day, I seriously think these two are connected, and I just don't think it's right for your boyfriend to pressure you in this way. My entitled classmate steals my computer right off my desk, denying ever taking it when I desperately start searching for it. But after the school administration and the principal get involved to find my computer, the culprit eventually steps forward just to avoid a group punishment for the entire class. But now I feel like a jerk for even saying anything in the first place. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. So to start things out, all names in this story are fake. So this story happened a couple years ago when I was attending middle school. I was in my first period, which was art class, and there are these three troublemakers who sit in the corner of the class. I sat near them, but not completely with them. Let's call them Tony, Tom, and Bob. I had my headphones in when I walked up to the front of the class to ask the teacher about the criteria for an upcoming project. While standing there, I heard the sound of my headphones disconnecting from my computer. I turned around to look at my computer, but I didn't notice it gone, and that's because of my classmate's computer. But when I walked back to my seat, I realized my computer is not there. I asked my neighbors if they took it, and they did not. But my mind immediately went to the kids in the back, especially Tom. Now, Tom was known in our school to be a troublemaker and generally not a very good student. They are the type of kids to not pay attention in class and swear during class. And when I realized that they probably took it, I walked over and I asked Tony if he had taken it. And he just said to me, "No, why would I take it?" I then looked around a little bit more until giving up and telling the teacher. Let's just call this teacher Mia. Mia was a very strict but nice teacher. And when I told her, she helped me look around and ask other classmates with their computers if they had seen who had taken it or if they had taken it themselves, but nobody turned it in. Mia then got the entire class's attention and told them that if nobody gave it back in the next 5 minutes, she would call the office. And trust me, she sticks to her word. But even then, nobody turned it in. Well, Mia did exactly that. She called up to the office with one admin and 2 security officers coming in and giving the students an ultimatum. They said to us plainly, either you give up the computer in the next 2 minutes or we search every single backpack. But still, nobody turned anything in. They then escorted all the kids to the lunch area and kept me in the room, asking me if my computer had stickers on it to help them find it. We were unsuccessful in searching the room, so the school locked the computer so it could not be used. After being unsuccessful in finding the computer, the principal themselves actually came in with the students and decided to intervene. He said to them, "I've heard students saying that we buy these computers for $20, but in reality they're much more than that. They're well over $200, and it becomes a pretty big deal when they are stolen because they cost a lot to replace." Now, at this point, I felt really embarrassed, and I did not want this to become such a big deal. The principal continued his speech. He said, "I will give you all a choice. Either the computer gets turned in by the end of this period, or there is no field trip at the end of the year for the entire class." And for the record, we had a very nice trip planned to Six Flags. The entire class was silent for the next 3 to 4 minutes, and when the bell rang, a lot of people were mad at me, and I was honestly afraid of getting beaten up. But later later that day, the computer was found by Tom, you know, one of the troublemakers from earlier, and he turned it in because it was locked and he couldn't use it. So am I the jerk for reporting this in the first place? What should I do? You are definitely not the jerk. You knew exactly who took it, but they just didn't want to fess up to it. Like, you are definitely not in the wrong, and there's no reason for you to feel guilty in the slightest. Those troublemaker kids in the back very clearly are the ones at fault, and if you and your class actually did end up losing your trip to Six Flags, then trust me, it wouldn't be your fault. It would be Tom and his stupid friends who clearly wanted to mess with you. And I honestly can't stand people like this. People who steal other people's belongings like that. It is honestly so disgusting, and there's no good excuse for it. So hopefully Tom got in trouble for stealing your property, because under no circumstances is that ever okay. And in my opinion, I think you absolutely did the right thing. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up that I've been overestimating my friendship, and I'm starting to realize that it truly is one-sided. Here's what happened. Okay, so my friend and I have been friends since we were kids, with the both of us now being in our early 30s. There are periods of time where we talk and see each other a lot, and there's times where we simply don't. We hadn't been talking and seeing each other much since COVID, but a little over a year ago, we were both in much more stable situations. They stopped using hard substances, and I was in a more stable place with my job. So I decided to reach out. I texted more, I tried to be better. They don't have a car, but I do, so I would drive to see them once a month, if not more. They live pretty far away, so about 2 hours, but it was worth it, I thought. It's not about the money or time I spent getting there. It's about having an actual friend in my life. I was never a super social person, but after COVID lockdown, I now feel super out of touch with everything and everyone. It's gotten better, but I'm not good at making friends, and I'm not the best in social situations. So I figured trying to reach out and become close to this friend was a good start at feeling more like myself. Anyways, we texted to meet at their place days ago, and this person asked me a few days before if someone else could join. And even though I didn't know this person super well, I thought to myself, why not? It could be a better way to get to know somebody new. When I got there, the other person didn't have a car as they got an Uber to get there. But it doesn't matter, I thought. We would just hang out inside. I couldn't go into their place due to their spouse needing to rest, so I drove them around to get lunch and go to the mall, which was the plan all along, but they just never told me that I'd be driving them around. They offered gas money, but I declined because it's not about the money to me. Well, my friend and their friend are much closer than I am with my friend. So much so that most of the time I was there, they were talking about people that I didn't know. They were also going on about times that they hung out, inside jokes, and parties they went to, all of which I was never invited to. So there was only so many times where I could say, oh wow, that sounds like a lot of fun, all before it kind of started to hurt. It felt like I was a chauffeur and a third wheel. Well, since I'm socially inept, towards the end of the day, I just kind of stayed quiet. And I guess I looked pretty upset. I dropped them off, gave my friend their Christmas present, and said I was just tired, and then I left. When I got home, my friend texted me and asked me if I was okay. They kept spamming me messages and messages about it, and honestly, I didn't mean to be upset. I know my emotions aren't other people's responsibility, and I know other people are allowed to have close friends, even if that doesn't mean that I am one of them. It just hurt to realize I'm not close to them and probably never will be. So I texted my friend that I felt left out and that I know it's not their fault and that I know they are closer to their friend. They texted back basically confirming that they are closer, but that it doesn't matter and that it wasn't their intention to make me feel left out and that they won't include anyone else next time, which wasn't what made me upset. I tried to explain that, and the friend said that they'll make it up to me, whatever that means. I mean, how can they? They didn't do anything wrong. It was me who set unrealistic expectations on a friend I don't see often. Honestly, I feel like the friend is full of garbage and just saying whatever to try and make me not upset so I'll drive them around again. After all the effort that I put through to try and be their friend and get closer, I thought that I mattered more to them, and to find out it's a one-sided friendship just really makes me feel differently towards them. After having to drive so many people in my life around, such as my siblings and other people like friends and family, I'm very burnt out and I'm at my breaking point. I feel left out at work all the time, and I just didn't expect it from someone that I consider a friend. It sucks to realize that you're not as important to someone as they are to you, and it sucks to know that you're an afterthought. So I honestly messed up by thinking I was close to someone when in all actuality honestly, I'm really not. Okay, I think you're going about this in the wrong direction. Like, you're jumping to some weird conclusions that, in my opinion, are going to be the downfall of your friendship here. Not the fact that your friend has done anything or is like neglecting you in some kind of way, but instead, I think you've got to be careful because you might be the reason this friendship falls apart. Like, for starters, let's look at this realistically. You live 2 hours away. Like, I don't care who you are, that makes a very big difference when it comes to like who you're friends with. Like, I have friends who are 2 hours away, and so obviously I don't hang out with them all the time, meaning that the people who are closer nearby geographically are gonna have more of my time. Like, that's a normal thing that happens to literally everybody. But that doesn't mean that your friend doesn't like you. It doesn't mean that they used you the last time they saw you, because there's literally no evidence of that. If this person was not that good of a friend, they would not have bothered to reach out and be like, hey, are you good? And they also wouldn't have tried to like make it better the next time you guys hang out, if that even happens at this point. Like, they do sound like a good friend who wanted to reach out. If they were using you, they would have been like, okay, see you later, and it would then really feel like a one-sided friendship. But it doesn't seem like that happened at all from what you've described, and I think you're blowing this way out of proportion, all because your friend has other friends. And that's a really weird overextension on your part, and I think you really need to be careful. And I totally get it. You've had a bad history of being used, it sounds like, but you've got to be careful with that because you very seriously could like judge people incorrectly and completely ruin a friendship that honestly does not seem like it's falling apart. If anything, if I'm being completely honest, it really seems like you're the one tearing this apart. So hopefully you can see this way sooner than later, because from the sounds of it, your friend who lives 2 hours away does sound like a good friend. And in my opinion, I think it's time to look at the positives instead of assuming that your friend is just trying to use you. My entitled mother treats me like garbage and is constantly putting me down despite the fact that I have a disability and is now being forced to live with her against my will. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I got into a really bad accident a while ago, and I basically navigated all the doctor's appointments, therapy, and other things alone with like 2 weekend visits from my mom. I was in so much pain. And then we found out about the diagnosis. I had a brain injury and a bunch of other injuries as well. Anytime my mom came to visit, she'd always yell at me for being rude because I was needing some silence and patience, and she was threatening to leave. I mean, I had pounding headaches all day, every day, on top of seizures and other things. I ended up needing more care, so I had to move back with her since I was a bunch of states away. My friends that lived near me at the time saw me more often than her, and they were of great help. She now has this thing of saying that I never told her how bad everything was, yet she still saw it with her own 2 eyes. I kind of feel betrayed because she rushes to everybody else's problems and has so much concern for them, yet here I was with major injuries and she had blinders on. She let my narcissistic sister know, and her only response to my condition was to say, oh no. Meanwhile, this was the same person that my mom would tell me to be nice to when she cried for little things, like me saying no to set reasonable boundaries. It was also at this time during the move that I learned that my mom was moving. My sister is a very interesting kind of person, so she married an older, wealthier guy. They bought a house for her basically in the middle of nowhere, and they expected me to help her move when I could barely lift myself up and I was writhing in pain most days. And they called me selfish numerous times. Then my mom expected me to pay her back for all the trips that she came to see me. At one point, she said that she'd help me get a car because after the uninsured driver had hit me, plus all of the medical bills and not working because of injuries, meant that I was completely out of luck financially. But then all of a sudden, she backtracked that and said that she wasn't obligated to. Then she told everyone else in my family that she was supporting me. She then makes false promises stating that we'll go here or there, and since I'm stuck inside the house for years with no friends close by, while also being in an isolated area, but it never spells out to anything. She never does anything like that, but instead will go do things for an entire day without complaint with my sister and her husband. The worst part was when she said we go to the beach for my birthday, and we just literally parked and got food, and then less than 20 minutes later, she wanted to go back home. She had spent a whole day at the beach with my sibling the previous week, so I just cried for my birthday. And even this one too, because she had made promises that yet again she couldn't keep. Then anytime I bring up the differential treatment, she just gets upset and then yells at me. I mean, nothing ever changes. It's the very reason that I left in the first place, especially because she was invalidating my sibling's awful treatment towards me that she knew was happening. Something in me still loves loves her, but I just feel so abandoned that my only parent treats me this way. If I wasn't disabled, I'd be out of here so fast. But now it's taking twice as long to be even productive enough to leave. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I'm gonna say it straight up, but I think your mom is a complete narcissist. Like, she is just straight up ignoring all of your problems, and she's almost ignoring the fact that you're disabled. Like, you're in a situation where you really need people on your team to help you out. And the fact that she's like guilt tripping you and treating you like garbage pretty much every day is just so uncalled for. So hopefully there's some way you can move out or find some kind of like program to help you out, because the way your mom's treating you is absolutely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for not telling my former fiance that I actually bought her dream house? Because right now she and the rest of her family are calling me awful names online, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. 10 years ago, my fiance left me a few weeks before our wedding. We grew up in a small town, we were friendly, went to the same school, but we were never in the same clique. She was one of the popular kids and I wasn't. A few years after college, I moved back home when my dad got sick. I found a job in my field about 45 minutes away from home, and I would help take my dad to his chemo appointments. It was during one of those appointments that I ran into my now ex. She was now working at the hospital, and one day while waiting, I decided to ask her out. It turned out that we were interested in a lot of the same things. It seemed like our relationship was going great, and about a year or so into dating, I moved into a rented house together, and in the following year, I proposed. We began looking for a house, and my ex always wanted to live in her grandparents' house on the lake near our town. Her family was forced to sell the house when her grandparents passed away, and this is all due to an inheritance dispute. 6 months before our wedding, a chance event happened. The couple who bought her grandparents' lake house had grown tired of our snowy winters. It took some work and nearly all of my savings, but I was able to buy her dream house. It was going to be my surprise wedding present, so I didn't dare tell her or anyone in her family my plans. A month before our wedding, my ex and her friends went to Miami for her bachelorette party. I'm not sure of what happened there, but part of me doesn't really want to know. But I do know that her high school boyfriend was there as well. When she got back from the trip, she broke down and confessed that she was afraid to get married, and she wanted to call it off. It was a massive mess. She later then moved to Florida and eventually married her high school boyfriend. I ended up moving back to the city for an amazing job. In the meantime, I still had the lake house. With the help of my mom, we started to fix up the lake house, and it honestly took a few years. My mom and dad would look after the contractors while I was in the city. Having the house was perfect when everything was locked down. I was able to escape the city and work remotely from the lake house, and I now live here full time and I work remotely. This summer, we had a 4th of July celebration at the lake house. My sister-in-law used photos from the lake this summer in her Christmas card, and one of those cards made it to my ex's cousin. The cousin recognized the house, and the Saturday before New Year's, my ex's mother and sister were at my front door. After the pleasantries and answering their initial questions, they made an offer to buy the house outright. But after refusing their offer, I could tell that they were not happy. A few days later, I got a long text message from my ex. Now, mind you, this was the first time in 9 years that she was talking to me. She called me a jerk for keeping this from her, and her family is blaming her for losing the house again. She then chimed in and asked me to sell it, but I still had no intention of ever selling it. Now her and her family are complaining on social media that this is some sort of revenge. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are definitely not the jerk. Like, your intention behind this was to surprise your ex with the house at the wedding, but that never happened because she bailed on the wedding. And if I'm willing to guess, it had something to do with that high school boyfriend that was also at this party. Like, it's mighty convenient that suddenly she's like, oh no, I don't want to get married, and then she turns around and marries the guy that was at the party. Like, come on. She is not fooling anybody, and I'm kind of convinced that she cheated on you, and that's the only reason she backed out all of a sudden. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your ex-fiance and her family are just really salty that once again, they blew their chance at getting this house. And this completely ignores the fact that you've put the work in to try and get it and fix it up so that you can actually live in it. Like, if they really wanted that house, they would have been jumping on the chance to buy it the second it was available. But they clearly didn't want that, and they only wanted it once you fixed it up. So truly, they're the jerk in this scenario, and I think that you are under no obligation to ever sell that house. My time as a firefighter at a volunteer department was absolutely miserable, and after getting written up for something absolutely ridiculous, I decided that enough was enough, and as a result, I put in my resignation and I never looked back ever again. Here's what happened. So I used to be a firefighter for a volunteer department. The town was small and nothing happened on most days, but I was young and single and I loved the job. I showed up every single time that I could, and the only person who was there more than me was the chief. As many volunteer firefighters know, when grandma falls down at 3 in the morning, you get 1 or 2 people. But if there's a fire, people you haven't seen in months suddenly have enough time to show up. Anyways, that department was a mess. People were always talking bad about each other and backstabbing each other, and training was a joke. You were lucky to get a PowerPoint once a week. Stuff was stolen a lot, and there was once a whole political coup for some reason. Somebody really wanted power in a small town department in the middle of nowhere. I learned it was best to stay quiet and just do my job, and that was helped when I went to night shifts at my real job. I was working 12-hour shifts, and sometimes it was 5 or 6 days a week. I still showed up to every run that I could, but after 7 years there, I was just done with it all. Everything came to a head when I was scheduled 28 12-hour shifts out of a 30-day month. I was still the second most active member out of 30 people, but I wasn't kissing the appropriate butts apparently, and the management just kept trying to get me in trouble. They once said they would fire me for not turning in some paperwork, and I had to point out that the paperwork had been sitting in their mailbox for 3 days. They eventually decided to add a stupid new rule. You were now required to sit at the station for 40 unpaid hours a month. Not doing so could lead to discipline and termination, and I didn't bother. I was about 24 shifts into the month, and I did not care about their dumb rule, but I realized that I could make it, so I left work, I grabbed a change of clothes, and I went to the department. It was about noon, which was midnight to me, since I was working nights. I tried to sleep on the rock-hard beds they provided, and not 30 minutes went by when the training officer kicked the door in and demanded that I get up and help with training. What was my role, you might be asking? I sat on a hose so I didn't move while someone else practiced the pump controls. I mean, a sandbag could have done it just as well. An hour later, the training finished, and I tried to go back to sleep, but I was told off again. I ended up hiding in the TV room just so I could have some peace and quiet. Well, they found me again, and they wrote me up for the first time in years for what amounted to not being enthusiastic enough about the job. I endured a lecture while trying not to fall asleep where I stood, and I finally got to sit down when I got a text from the boss at my real job. They wanted me to work that night and wondered if I was available. So I thought to myself, you know what? I am available, and I just straight up left. A few days later, I got a nasty email from one of the guys who wrote me up, telling me that they didn't like my attitude and that I needed to think about what I wanted. Well, I thought about it and I realized that I didn't want to deal with their garbage any longer. So I wrote my resignation letter, I went back to the station, gathered all of my personal effects, and I never went back there ever again. Honestly, this is like a crash course in how to leave a toxic job. These people completely ignored the fact that you were the most hardworking person at that station, and yet they still treated you like garbage pretty much no matter what. Like, that is honestly so unfortunate, and it's so disturbing in my opinion. Like, you actually cared about doing this job, and they were always constantly putting you down. And that, in my opinion, is just completely unfair. So good for you for knowing your worth and getting out of there as soon as you could, because these people did not value your time or attention in the slightest. And it's really great to see that you figure that out sooner than later. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.